Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees and Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors for February 23rd, 2015. Can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Clint Olson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams.
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Rita Dozell.
Here.
Elia Gagoras.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Town Manager Nick Mulvey.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Harden.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the agenda.
Yeah. Yes, I'd like to pull 7G for
Okay.
later discussion.
Pull 7G. Anything else?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda, minus 7G.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Gregoris, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor of the agenda with the change? Passes unanimous. Okay, next is reports, questions, and issues. Who'd like to start? Trustee Gregoris?
Wait, you're going to start? I thought you said you didn't have anything. You can start.
Good place to start then.
Perfect place
Okay,
to
you
start.
start and I'll go.
And there's always a first time, but I have absolutely nothing to report. I'm very excited about that.
Okay, I've served with Deborah for 8 years. This is a first. Okay, so together with the mayor, on February 11th, I attended the grand opening of Massage Envy. An incredible job by the Chamber of Commerce. Heather isn't here today, but we must have had like 60, 65 people attending, which is the grandest opening of any business here in Superior. Very, very well attended. So would highly recommend visiting that business if you want to relax, get a massage, a facial, or whatever. They are very professional, very excited. The owners, I think this is like, I think their 8th.
Exciting.
Yeah, so they own 8 other franchises, so clearly very successful. They know what they're doing. And it's more of there's a new decor, I guess. It's more of a spa feeling to it, less than a massage place, if you will. So it's more upscale. Very nice. And earlier that afternoon, Trustee Sorelli and I and Matt and I think Alex, and was that it from us? Yeah, we attended the Louisville Superior Committee Joint Issues Committee meeting. The discussion items were, the first one was just the coordination of the water and wastewater systems coordination. Talked about in case of an emergency, maybe creating an IGA, and I think the amount was like 900,000. Do you remember that? Is Alex here? Alex is here.
Yeah.
To create.
For the project cost.
Right. Yeah.
This is for the.
In case of an emergency.
Yeah.
Right. Right. We gave them an update on the Superior Town Center. Obviously, they're very eager about that. They ask us every time we meet, what's been happening. Talked about the McCaslin US 36 interchange update. The Phillips 66, the former Storage Tech property, they're still trying to sell it as is. I think the cost was like $60 million, which they didn't think that they're going to get, but right now they're not planning on doing anything to enhance it, to sell it. Also talked about the US 36 Davidson Mesa Underpass. The funding, which they also keep asking us. I don't know, Joe, if you want to say anything about that.
No, we basically, in the past, it said we would put in our share if and when we had some money to do a trail connection to town. And so now it looks like the money is materializing, so that is something we will belly up to. We said, when the money comes and the trail's in, that's, hopefully future boards will honor that, because it'll be a couple of years down the road.
Yeah, time for us to contribute. And then finally, the Sam's Club property, urban renewal. So the Louisville City Council approved a blight finding, which means what, Matt, in layman's terms?
Just that they can start to prepare their urban renewal plan for the property, and then the council would consider that for approval. And once they, if they do that, then they'd be able to assess tax and condemn property if they need to, or get out of any provisions that might be part of a lease agreement with the current store or building. They have more power to do things to redevelop the property.
And clearly, that's a big property in the heart of Louisville. They want to utilize it. It's been vacant for quite a while, or not really bringing any,
Yeah, 5, 6 years?
5, 6 years since Sam's Club left, so that'd be like us losing Costco. It's a big revenue source for them, so clearly they need to do that. And the last thing, that we all just attended a joint meeting with Open Space Advisory Committee. It was very, very productive, and I'll let some of the other members talk about that in more detail. Sandy?
I actually attended the OSAC committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. They prepared for tonight's meeting, and I thought tonight's meeting went excellently. As I said at tonight's dinner meeting with them, for the first time in several years, OSAC is full up on committee members, and we've got a really nice group of enthusiastic members. So I expect great things this year from them. Also attended, along with a couple other trustees and the mayor, the ProStack dinner a week ago, and that was equally productive. So I think we're all huge fans of these annual dinners, and I think we would all recommend we continue them. I, too, went to the Massage Envy grand opening, but I had to get there at 3:30 because I had a 4 o'clock meeting, and it was packed at 3:30. And so I was very impressed. I think it is I thought that corner property was such a great property. One, it has a back patio, too, if you go around back. And so I'm happy that after many years, has been redeveloped, and I agree, it's a spa feeling, and I think it's going to be very successful here. I wanted to ask staff, there was in the Boulder Daily Camera yesterday quite a nice piece on RTD and some of the BRT routes they're anticipating for this region, and I know Boulder City Council is taking issue with some consolidation and some dropping of some routes. And so I wondered if our staff is going to be assigned to look at impacts on the town of Superior. I had read in that article that the stop at Flatirons Marketplace, which might impact our residents, something's happening to it. It didn't go into much detail, but I thought stops there were being dropped on some of the routes. So I'd really recommend our transportation staff take a look at that whole plan and that we comment as necessary. Also, there is did we all get the same email on the revised fare plan? Did that come out to everybody?
Just
So that,
today.
yeah, that revised fare plan, too, I think is very important because some of these fares are getting pretty costly, like the one to DIA, to where you actually sit there and go,
Not if you're old.
Anyway, so I'd like us equally to take a look at that fare plan and, feedback to the board whether or not comment is necessary. That's all.
Okay. Trustee Dizelle?
Yes, I participated with the mayor on a tour of the Rocky Mountain Fire District and the facilities on February 13th. Very impressive tour. I'd highly recommend it for people if you have an opportunity to do so. I feel very safe after going to all of the firehouses that are within the Rocky Mountain Fire District. I would like to thank the chief and members of the Rocky Mountain Fire District Board of Directors who participate in that. But after that tour, then, it actually prompted a lot of questions for me and for how we, our residents, participate in that and the services received, and how it gets paid for and all that. So I'll be asking for some additional information from our staff, and before we have our dinner with the Rocky Mountain Fire District, I think it would be good, because I think Martin sent out some information about the mill levies for surrounding areas, and we discussed at that tour how we cooperate, or the Rocky Mountain Fire District cooperates with and goes and provides services to other locations, whether it's communities or open space, like Boulder Open Space. And I think I would like a little better understanding of that to make sure that our residents are providing half of the budget, through taxes for Rocky Mountain Fire District. So I want to understand if that's commensurate with the services that we provide. So I would like to talk some more about that, not tonight necessarily, but we should have some discussion about that before we have a meeting with the board, the Rocky Mountain Fire District Board. Also attended the DRCOG board meeting last Wednesday night. There's going to be a presentation to our board on April 13th regarding the Sustainable Communities Initiative. I don't know anything more about that, but I would like to ask, can we find out if that's really happening? Because they mentioned that they were meeting with Superior on Sustainable Communities Initiative on April 13th, so I'd like more information about that.
Before the board?
They said they were presenting it to Superior.
They had requested a date to make a presentation to the board, and we were able to find a date that works for them. They're meeting with all communities, is
Right.
my understanding, so.
So just more information so we can understand what it is. Their presentation wasn't very detailed or descriptive that night. Then the legislative review, I think there's two bills that are important to just briefly comment about. One is Senate Bill 172, which was to add more transparency to public-private partnerships. And it was discussed pretty extensively at the DRCOG meeting, Denver Regional Council of Governments meeting. Subsequently, though, it was just killed the following day in committee. So what it was a bill that was presented to bring more transparency and more information to the public about these public-private partnerships, like the tolling on 36. That's a private and public partnership with CDOT and the private company that's going to actually be doing that. And that was killed in committee, Senate committee, because the governor has presented or signed an executive order that he feels includes all of the requirements that were the premise of this bill, and they really didn't think it was necessary to have another legislation as well as that. And then another Senate Bill 177 is the HOA construction defects bill. I think you've all read about that or heard about that. We've talked about it, I think. And that bill is still going through committees in the Senate, and it basically adds some arbitration disclosures and requirements pertaining to construction defect laws and lawsuits, and lots of discussion at DRCOG. Narrowly passed with a vote to support. Many jurisdictions abstained due to potential perceived conflict between who are they supporting? Are we supporting the residents, the owners of the property, or are we, as elected officials, supporting the developers? And the bill was kind of complicated, and it wasn't real clear who the bill was actually there to help support. So that one is expected, though, not to make it out either. At least the lobbyists were saying that they didn't expect that construction defect bill would actually make it through and become law or get to the governor. But we'll see what happens with that. And then the thing that was of interest that you may be interested, somebody might be, DRCOG is having a luncheon on February 26th at 12:30 p.m. with representatives from Baghdad, Iraq, and they're going to talk about peace initiatives with Baghdad, representatives from the government in Baghdad. So if anybody's interested in attending the luncheon, it is February 26th. And they're defining and exploring practices underlying transparency and accountability and pervasive types of corruption and strategies for addressing corruption in government. It was just kind of interesting that they were actually having a contingent from Baghdad coming over to talk about corruption in government with the Denver DRCOG. Yeah, so. I'm not suggesting that there's any corruption there. It was just fun kind of. Okay.
That's their sister.
Their sister city.
Yeah. One question, did they talk about the Urban Renewal Authority bill?
No, they did not. They did not talk about that.
Okay, so there's no news on that.
No. I don't, there's no news on that. That was not one of the bills that we discussed, yeah.
Okay, trustee
There was
Serrano.
quite an article, there was an editorial in the newspaper, and there's been several articles about that in the Denver Post, but that was not discussed.
So, in addition to the three meetings that have previously been mentioned, that ProStac, OSAC dinners, and the Louisville Committee, Joint Issues Committee that I attended. Also attended an RCAC meeting on February 12th, in which there was a representative from the Rock Creek Master Homeowners Association, Jim Payne, was at the meeting and advised that the HOA has established a waste services subcommittee that is aimed at being a liaison with our RCAC and to try to coordinate message and where we're going on waste services in the future. So that's a positive step, I think. And the committee also went over what the work plan ended up with. Nothing stands out to me about that discussion. What does stand out to me that everybody should remember, it's a big day for the committee and a big day for Superior is April 18th. On that day, and I guess Superior staff, on that day in the morning is the household hazardous waste and hard to recycle collection event, which will be from 9 to noon at El Dorado K through 8. And also that day from 10 to noon is Arbor Day at Founders Park that the RCAC has some role in. So it's a pretty big day for the town that we should keep on our calendars. We have an upcoming dinner with them in March, and that's also this same week that they have their regular meeting, but rather than try to change that, they're going along with 2 meetings that week, and at least it looks like that from the polling that Martin did. And they're looking to they got a questionnaire, I think, from Martin that to provide input for the town contract solicitation, which is coming up this year for the new town waste services contract. So that's going on. That's the RCAC. And then I had a historical commission meeting last Friday, in which they are going, again, went over several things. The main 2 things, the date for their spring program is April 18th, I believe. And Larry Dorsey, the chair who's been re-elected, no, it's,
Is that the same day as the?
well, no, April 18th, and then theirs is April
It's 23rd.
23rd, yes. And Larry Dorsey, the chair, is going to be doing a presentation on railroad history in Boulder County. The next thing I'd like to mention from that meeting is, as part of their work plan, there's in this quarter and next quarter, they're working to develop a budget that they're going to submit for next year's budget for restoration of the fire truck. They have looked into, and town staff has also looked into the possibility of getting some diagnostics done on the fire truck to get an idea of what kind of shape the engine is. And, for example, they've heard that there's a cracked block. Nobody's really sure there is a cracked block, which has a significant impact on what the budget would be for restoring it. They've heard that the engine in it is actually not the original engine. So anyway, get some facts, and so they'll have to spend a little money to get somebody to do these diagnostics. This can be done within the within their work plan and within the parameters of their current budget, but just wanted to, they wanted to make sure the board didn't have any problem with proceeding and actually taking some steps to, with staff, to get some diagnostics done on that truck so they can come up with a reasonable idea of a budget. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that, or a head nod would be good enough.
Thumbs up.
They're anxious to move forward on getting something done on the truck, and so this is a good start to actually know what they're talking about. And that's all I have.
Okay, Trustee Hanson?
Yep. Attended the same advisory committee dinner meetings and also attended the ProStack meeting last Wednesday. They reviewed their annual trails plan and did some reprioritization of the trails. And then they also voted in their new chairman and vice chair, with Peter Bottomley being their chairman and Sandy Hammerly being their vice chair. I recently contacted State Senator Tim Neville's office. I had some questions for him, and I've since spoken to his staff a couple of times and invited him to come to a meeting and present and get to know us a little bit, and he's eager to do that, probably not till after the session is done. I think he said May. But he also asked if we needed any assistance in anything, if there's anything that he wanted him to go to battle for us on, and he specifically mentioned the construction defects bill. So if we come up with a position on that, then we can go back to him and have him represent us on that. I also talked to him about our continued opposition to controlled burns at Rocky Flats, and asked if there's any way that he could assist us on that moving forward as well. Last thing is, this Friday we've got the Superior Elementary School Student Council is doing their council meeting here in the boardroom Friday afternoon. So there'll be about 25 student council members from Superior Elementary School here. It'll be quite fun. They'll be taped and get DVDs of their meeting. And that's it.
Great, thank you. I'll do my updates now. On the 11th, I did the Massage Envy ribbon cutting, great event. On the 12th, Alex Arnello, our Public Works Director, and I went to meet with a whole bunch of other elected officials, the new CDOT Director, Shaylin Batt, and took some notes on his words, and he says he's focused on good customer service. He believes in any addition of new roadway lanes should be paid for by tolls. He thinks that addressing the challenges of funding are going to be answered by more P3s, since raising taxes continues to be unpopular. The US 36 P3, and by P3 I mean public-private partnership, that's what that stands for. The US 36 project is one of the first in the country, and many believe that that's going to be a model for additional projects throughout the country, so it's being looked at very closely. The I-70 improvements from I-25 to I-225 are going to most likely be following that same path. On the 13th, went on the Rocky Mountain Fire District tour and learned a lot about the fire department and or fire district, and look forward to additional follow-up there. Did the ProStack dinner on the 18th. On the 19th, went to a call and ride meeting with RTD board member Chuck Sisk, some RTD staff members and town staff. They let us know that the funding for the return of the call and ride buses is going to be October 1st of this year is when the funding is going to be provided. They can't initiate vehicle orders until that time. And so service start times that our RTD has in their cycle is January, May, and August. The time frame between August or October and January is a little bit tight for them to get vehicles ordered and to get them prepared. So we're looking at a May start time for the call and ride service, May of 2016. So we'll be.
Ridiculous.
It's a long time, and I did question that, and but they said we have got. Well, they said they can't start the vehicle orders until October, and that given some model year switchovers or something with vehicles, it was going to be tight to get them in by January.
How can we facilitate it faster?
I pressed them for creativity and said, if you can figure out a way to get it done sooner, we will all be very happy that it's done sooner. Because I had the same question. I said, 8 months to get, I said, we're not talking about a jetliner here. We're talking about buses. But
Are they using all the current buses? None
There'll
are
be
sitting
new
idle?
there'll be new vehicles.
But why does it have to be a new one?
Apparently, they don't have any in their fleet.
Okay.
They don't have spare ones.
Yeah,
That-
none
That question
available,
came up, too.
yeah, that they aren't
Yeah.
using.
We used to have one.
It's the one in Louisville now, I think.
So a big thank, on the call and ride, a big thank you goes to Alex, Rita, staff, Commissioner Elise Jones, and others, and Dr. Cog for getting that reinstated for a 3-year program. So we're hopeful that it will be around for longer, for 3 years and longer. Thanks to OSAC for a good meeting tonight. Additional announcement, I circulated this to the board, but the Metro Mayor's Caucus did put together a letter of thanks to U.S. Fish and Wildlife for canceling the Rocky Flats burn. They were going to do a letter of opposition to the Rocky Flats burn, but the announcement of cancellation came right around the time the letter was still being approved, and so they flipped it to make it a thank you letter. So I thought that was good that Metro Mayor's Caucus got involved with that. And I wanted to throw out a thanks to staff and contractors for a great job on snow removal. If you've driven around today, you know that everybody's been hard at work on snow removal, and the roads look good considering the amount of snow, so thank you for that. Okay, that's it. I'm going to be back with upcoming events announcements, but we'll go on to manager announcements.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Town attorney?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Town clerk?
I don't have anything.
Okay. A couple of these upcoming events have been announced already, but I just want to make sure that I announce them publicly. So on Sunday, March 1st, 10 to 12, we've got the Coyote Hike out of Hayes. That was scheduled for us last Saturday. We had a little snow, and so it's been rescheduled.
You're going to get more snow.
There'll be more snow. yeah.
Might be some more snow, might be rescheduled. Saturday, March 14th, Winter Wildlife Walk, 9 to 11 at the South Pool. And Thursday, March 19th, Mayor for Meals at the Coal Creek Meals on Wheels in Lafayette. March 23rd, a reminder that's a normal board meeting night, but there will not be a second board meeting in March. We decided that in January. It's spring break week, and we decided to take that week off, so only one meeting in March. Sunday, April 19th, fly fishing in Purple Park, fly fishing lessons. And another one on April 26th. That was done last fall and very well attended. I will be doing one of those as well.
They stocked the lake.
Yes. And then finally, on Friday, April 24th, we're doing a new event with the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to call it the Mayor and Manager Town Update. They may have a better name than that, but Louisville's done this, and other towns do this once or twice a year, just to update residents, anyone who's interested in coming. It'll probably be a box lunch. We're going to do it at the fire station on Friday, April 24th at noon. So Mayor, Manager, Town Update. Anyone's welcome to attend that. So those are the upcoming events. All right. Anything else before we move on? Okay, next is public comment.
Gladys Forshey, 404 South 3rd Avenue. I just want to make sure residents will have an opportunity to discuss the 7G item later.
Yes.
Thank you.
Additional public comment. Her question was, will we have a chance to discuss 7G later? Will the public have a chance to comment on 7G? And the answer is yes. Additional public comment.
Hi, Brian Hill, Kyoto resident. I was wondering, same question on the topic of the ISM proposal. When that's up for discussion, will there be an opportunity for a public comment?
Sorry, what item?
For, I think it's item 8. It's the
Oh, yeah.
ISM proposal.
Impact sports.
Oh, the impact sports?
Yeah.
Sure, we can do some.
Yep.
We'll be glad to do that. Sure.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 6. Item number 6, presentations, Town Center update.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. Randy Goodson with RC Superior. Here to provide an update on what we're doing. First of all, you've seen the trenching and process for the foundations for Boulder Valley Ice. Of course, that got underway right as the snow started to fall, and so they are. I talked to Luke earlier today. They have to, I almost got stuck out there, driving out there, so I would not recommend anyone venturing out there. So they're working with the snow as they know how to do. And so they're progressing, and once they get foundations in the ground, then there'll be less impact from the snow. We coordinate very closely with BVI to make sure that we'll have all of the utilities and infrastructure that they need. We have their construction schedule interfaced with our construction schedule, and that's something that we have standing meetings every 2 weeks with their construction manager, with our project manager, and myself. In addition, the infrastructure plans may be revised slightly to accommodate new development. We're working with some home builders that we're very excited about, and we will come back with some potential, very likely there'll be some slight modifications to the block dimensions to accommodate to accommodate the housing that the builders want to build, which will, I think you'll be very happy with. We're certainly very happy to have found builders that want to build exactly what we've been talking about for several years. So it's, I won't let the cat out of the bag, but it's very exciting. And with that, Main Street, we'll make some proposed changes to Main Street so that the street and the pattern of the sandstone lays out well in relation to the buildings going in on Main Street. We had a meeting with US 36 Commuting Solutions. We've been working with them and your staff for several months on a transportation demand management plan that was contemplated in our PD, and we met with one of the companies that proposed on that on the request for proposal, and this company, it's all they do is transportation demand management plans across the nation. Didn't know it was such a big business, but they're very, very knowledgeable, so that's something that we're going to be working on continue to work on with your staff and the consultant. Superior Medical Office Building with Sawtooth Development Group is progressing. They have 38% of the building pre-leased under contracts, and they are in discussions with a number of other tenants. They need to get to 60% signed contracts to break ground, and there's two things that will help that. One, they can't really do anything about, and one they can. What they did is they hired a broker. Everything, the leasing they've done to date has been through their contacts and the contacts of primarily Joe Sheen, who's a partner of theirs on this project. And so they've hired a broker just to get to that 60% pre-leasing, and then what they can't control is the more activity with Boulder Valley Ice and indoor sports. As that goes vertical, they think that will shake a lot of tenants loose. They are they're in dialogue with a lot of medical tenants that would lease up more than 100% of the building. And that would be as a 4-story building. You may recall we gave them an option of doing 3 or 4 stories because we want to get it under construction. And they're very confident they'll get to the 4 stories. That also will come back to you because that building will be separated from Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports. They were always separate legal parcels, but the buildings were, in the FDP approved, had the buildings really adjacent with direct access, and for a number of reasons, it's made sense for them to separate those buildings, so that will come back to you. The other thing is that there will be a parking structure on the back of that office building to accommodate both the shared parking for BVI and for the medical office building.
When you say to the back of it, do you mean closer to 36?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that in addition to potential parking structure on the south end of BVI?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Public or private?
Well, the parking structures are all public parking structures. They're, what we're talking about are use agreements, so that there are use agreements, so the parking is, for the office tenants, a certain number of the spaces would be restricted during, I think it's 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, so that the tenants have the priority. Effectively, all we can really do is put signs up that says, office parking only during this time period. And then the structure on the east side of Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports would also identify that it's predominantly for the Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports facility.
And that'll come to us as a separate PD?
Yes. FDP. Yeah, FDP.
Now, I have a question about the garage the structure that's being proposed for MOB, medical office building. That's a private, though, because that's for their use.
It's a public, it's shared use. It will be a quote-unquote public, but the amount of the costs that is paid for out of public funds will be less than 100%, probably closer to 40% or something like that, because there's an allocation, there's a way that these parking structures, it's very common to have parking structures reserved during certain time periods for a private use, and then you take that economic value and it's not allowed to be, it has to be paid for by the medical office building developer, and then the balance is paid for out of Metro District proceeds.
Metro District's not out of the TIF funding.
Well, it's all blended together.
Okay, I would like to ask that we have an better understanding of that before we get to having to approve this.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that we've hired our own consultant who's knowledgeable in parking structures, and he's going to review each of these as they come forward and be available for board questions.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because my understanding was you can't use tax increment financing for garages that are privately used. So if there's some way we can do it in a combination, and that's very clearly identified, that's news to me, but I'd like to hear that from staff, about that. So, as my understanding too was that the MOB the medical office building was going to build this structure for their own purposes, for their own use. So I thought that was a private garage that was proposed. But that's okay, we don't have to discuss it now, it's just more of a question for the
Yeah,
future.
if you look at our PD, all the parking has been contemplated to be shared parking.
Well, the parking was public parking, and then it was contemplated that people would utilize it, but not be told that the public couldn't use it from certain hour to certain hours. So, but, again, not.
We'll discuss that at the right time.
Yeah, it's not for debate now.
Okay. The same thing with Central Park. We're working with the builders that we are spending a lot of time with on reviewing their product. I went to some projects in California that they've identified as their architect is an architect that has offices in Newport Beach and in Denver. Mike Woodley, fabulous architect. Coincidentally, he was the architect for Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports, just coincidentally, I think. And the fact that he has an office in Newport Beach, he's designing, virtually the exact same homes, very, very similar in Southern California, homes that are selling for over $2 million. So it's really exciting. So we're spending a lot of time with them, and part of that is we've been talking about the park and the Village Green, and we've laid out the plans from your consultant on the park, from our consultant, and we've talked about their buyer profile, and every builder has different experiences, it seems, with having homes fronting a park, so they have things that have concerned them, and we will, I think, in the next couple of months come back with a proposal for more detail on both those park plans, to have that discussion. And then I already mentioned Main Street. We want to know as much as we can. We want to have an idea of where the entrances will be for the residential buildings. One of the builders will actually build condo buildings. They're going to be building 6 or 10 unit condo buildings, the same plans that they're building in downtown Denver, and also with great pricing, great street presence, and so we want to just have the Main Street orientation. You know, you don't want to have sort of a change in pavement right at the front door to a building. In a lot of the old main streets, you sort of have an identification that you're entering in the sidewalk, where maybe they put maybe there's a 6x6, big paver out there in front of where a door or a stairs might be. And so we're going to come back to you with that type of plan. So that's what we're working on.
You mentioned condo buildings. What's the timing on those approximately? And what's your read on how to handle this construction defect issue that's plaguing condos across the state right now?
Yeah, well, we didn't have the condos were the most difficult. I think all of these products, it took a lot of massaging and talking to a lot of different builders until we found the builders that believe the same way we do. This builder builds townhomes. They're building townhomes. This one builder that we really like that will build the condos, they are building high-density townhomes, and they insure them as though they were condos. They get construction defect insurance. It's expensive, but they get it, and they think they can pay for that insurance. They expect high values for the condos, and that this is where there's a real focus to provide the single-level elevator-served living to really hit the empty nester market. So they have this. We separately have a insurance broker that we're talking to, and we're considering different insurance options if we're going to have condos built in the project where we ourselves want to be covered by insurance. So that's something that we're working through. But yeah, there haven't been too many builders interested in building the condo building. In fact, I hope they're not watching, but they're the only one we found. So we're very excited about it because they're a strong believer in this product and this market. So we're excited about that.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Hanson.
You mentioned that BVI is preparing for a foundation. It's going to be an all foundation, or is there a slab there, or is it all foundation?
The foundation and the slab, I should have said both of them. Okay. Fundamentally, when they are constructing their foundation, they start their slab. They start off with the foundation and the spread footings. So the big trenching, if anyone's been down there, and you see the track hoe, what the track hoe's digging out are deep sort of recesses in the earth for spread footings.
Okay. So once they do the foundation, the slab, is there a certain minimum period of cure time for the concrete? What is that time frame once it's done?
It depends on how much money they want to spend and what their overall schedule is. There's chemicals you can put into concrete called accelerator that allows the foundation to cure in a shorter period of time. And they won't really know until really the day they pour, and they'll look at the weather forecast for out 2 weeks as far as they can see, and then they'll determine exactly what mix of concrete they order and how long they have to wait.
Okay, so on average, because if it's a 30-day window, residents are going to see a bunch of activity out there, and they're not going to see anything happening for 30 days. So I just want to be able to say that, well,
right,
it's curing, then they're going to start building in 30 days or 2 weeks or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so typically it's 30 days.
Okay.
The first week is the most important week, so they have to pick well when they pour.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Trustee
And
Duzan.
you anticipate that in March sometime, the pouring? If the weather is decent? Is that too soon?
March is Sunday, so.
Yeah, I guess it is March, because they thought they would be pouring this week or last week, and it's too muddy. I talked to Luke this morning, and he said that it's going to be warm tomorrow, and they were trying to get a crew to go dig out those trenches. But I've been, like I said, I was driving out there, and it gets really sloppy. So I think that's wishful thinking from my perspective.
So you talked a lot about residential, but I didn't hear anything about commercial, retail, or your term from a couple of years ago, entertainment
Yeah.
and hotels. So
Yeah.
where are you at on that?
The, all those uses come later. The hotel we have listed. We are not impressed by the hotel flags that are interested. There's plenty of interest, but they're roadside, unimpressive to us, and so we're just going to wait. Hotels are never the pioneer into a project. Office, we have, we put out proposals constantly for office space from 30,000 feet up to 500,000 feet. A lot of activity in the, I'd say, 70 to 110,000 foot range. There's a lot of tenants out there. I think those tenants would like to see the activity with Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports. And then, just sort of oddly enough, the weakest office market in the whole Denver Metroplex is the US 36 corridor. No one really knows why, because people don't tell you why. The brokers speculate it's because of the construction along the 36. And they're hoping that as the construction clears up and people know it's going to be opened, that will unleash this market a little bit. But the market on the 36 corridor has been constrained. There's less space over 50,000 feet, where a lot of that's where our focus is over 50,000 feet. But there's still, I think, 4 spaces that are somewhat competitive with us. We have interests in different restaurants, the entertainment, but we're just really taking interest because it's just premature to have that negotiation. The housing product that we bring forward is, what I'm hoping that we're able to make happen is bring these builders that we're working with, 2 of the builders that we're working with, the 4 builders that we're really spending a lot of time with so far, and their belief in the market is so strong that they're building a higher value product that will have more expensive homes and condos and townhomes, and then the sales prices, of course, will be higher, and the household income of the buyers will be higher, and with that demographic information, it will really support the type of restaurants and entertainment that we want to attract. So we're not going to be premature. The projects that have to be financed on the back of retail are national tenants or regional, major regional credit tenants, and we've not oriented ourselves that way. So we're going to wait to get the best tenants.
I recognize that. I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of the fact that it's a town center. It's not just a residential development. And then my last question is, what's the time frame then to actually put in Main Street and the infrastructure associated with that? What's your plan for that?
The Main Street will be under construction, this year. I think the earliest user of Main Street will be Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports, so we'll time that to occur. And we're trying to line up the same thing with the builders on Main Street so that all that activity occurs about the same time. I think
But it'll be done by
year.
December 31st, which is your time frame? It's your date is December 31st of this year?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, thank you.
I hope so. We may have to come back to you. It'll be under construction. It might take another month or 2. We have to come back to you for an extension of the SIA.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this transportation management plan. Are we talking public or private transportation? Are we talking in conjunction with RTD? Is this something townwide? Give me an idea.
Well, the RFP is available, and we have a proposed contract that your staff has, so if you want to see that, there's a lot of details. But I would otherwise, without being sort of taking your question too insincerely, I would just say yes to all of that. There's a menu in the RFP. It was study all these things, and it's a laundry list, but they haven't done the work. We have also separately had meetings with RTD, and we are working on putting a bus terminal on Main Street. That's another thing that would cause a redesign of the town square. We got a design spec from RTD for what they'd like to see on the town square so they can have two different buses intersect, and they're either going to split a line or make it a connection point between two existing lines, sort of the East Louisville line to the west Flatiron and Interlochen line. But we haven't seen the full plan.
Okay.
I think it's 90 days or so. It's not too long that they have to put that together.
Okay, Trustee Pennington?
First, thanks for the thorough update. These are really helpful.
My pleasure.
Secondly, the Boulder Daily Camera in an article a couple of weeks ago was talking about Town Square and the availability of that space within a couple of years. And so we've committed to taking some of that space above the Town Square. Do you agree with that article? What's your prognosis for when some of that space may become available?
I agree with the article.
The couple
I
of
have to
years.
read it to remind myself, because almost every article I read, I think, I didn't really say
Yeah,
that.
it said a couple of years, which frankly
Yeah,
sort of surprised me.
Yeah,
Did
I
it
think,
surprise you?
I think that at the outside, I mean, our plan and hope is to get the town square, the public portion of the town square constructed with Main Street. We have other things we're working on in that we are having our own design meetings to refine a concept for the town square. And, you know, we have the building for the freestanding sort of restaurant where there's an opportunity for entertainment. And we're trying to, once you put a building, if it was just a big plaza and you kind of, you know, putting in a water fountain and some benches, you could move it around if you didn't like it. But we also, remember, we have the plan for the ice rink during the winter and a bandstand during, you know, the times when the ice rink is not there. And so we're working with Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports because they're going to populate that ice rink and will most likely have a lease on that ice rink from our metropolitan district. And so they cover the cost of that ice rink, but they also populate it. If, you know, it's like having a theater production company. You need a theater production company more than you need a stage, you know. And so I've been working with Luke to make sure that we don't just have an ice rink that, you know, 20 kids come out on Saturday and Sunday. We want that to be an activity center, and so that has to meet his design criteria. And then there's a shadow impact on the ice, but we want an adjacent building that will be a restaurant overlooking, so there's a strong adjacency. He'd like to have a skate and enhanced restrooms, so on the side of that restaurant building, we would have sort of a side that kind of opens up where it's not part of the restaurant, but you'd have skate rentals and restrooms. We're discussing whether we need it to be a locker room. We're discussing everything from whether we have a 3-foot pathway from the side of his building over to the ice skating rink that would have bollards that we would rope off essentially during the winter and have that a frozen sidewalk for the skaters to go there and then just skate over. And then there's a plastic you can put on the streets, and there's only 2 street crossings necessary, one coming on Superior Drive out of their building, and then one crossing Main Street. And so we're going. There's a lot of details in those plans, and we're working on those plans. So with that detail, that will help us market those buildings. And with the condo buildings being built, once we see what the price point, what the condo prices actually sell for, what the condo prices are, then that will help determine the demand for those buildings that we want to be mixed-use buildings. Because if the condo prices are lower than I expect, then that means that second, third floor space that's not the town space would need to be office space only. And then we'd have to wait for an office tenant. But if the condos sell for what I think and what a couple of builders think and what seems to be supported by the market, then it's a lot easier to build that building because there's a value, the space, whether it's condo space or office space, you know that you're going to be able to monetize it. If you don't get an office tenant in time, then you could make it condos as well.
The way I interpreted the article is the town space in whatever building fronts that portion of the square, that actual habitable space would be available within 2 years. Do you see that happening? Do you see that as a possibility? Do you have any?
I think it's very possible, yes.
Okay.
Okay. And that's my goal, too, or if not sooner, but it's my goal.
Okay, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
updates. Appreciate it. Okay, next is 6B, presentation on the Way property concept plan.
Thank you, Mayor. Representatives with the Way property are here tonight to present a concept plan for annexation and plan development zoning for an age-restricted residential community. Mr. Way's property is a little over 12 acres and is located just west of 76th Street or west of the Superior Marketplace. They'll make a presentation tonight and be open to the board's comments and questions. We've also invited the Planning Commission. I think there's a couple members here.
Great.
Good
Welcome.
evening, and thank you for taking the time to take a look at our proposal. I know you're busy, and so a little history about myself. I've been in Boulder County for 43 years, and I've been in the real estate industry for almost all of that time. And I've been involved with Superior since 1993 is when I put the 76th Street properties under contract. I've actually never been so excited about Superior. The town center community is finally going to have its day in the sun, and it's very, very exciting. And hopefully the 76th Street property will be part of this new resurgence. So as you know, that we're here today to introduce our vision about the senior housing and the need and to fill the need for this unmet demand. I've had a market study done by a national firm, and they confirmed that demand is there. In fact, everyone I mentioned is to really lights up because the people that are in Superior would like to stay in Superior. We propose to do as many lifestyle choices as we can for all the elders and the seniors. We plan on having a nature walk with themed gardens and an art walk, which would also be accessible to the public. Many seniors, want to live independently in cottages and apartments because they simply don't want to care for home and yard or drive in snow and ice, and others need various levels of care. I have some closing statements, but I'm actually going to turn it over to Carl Worthington. He's our planner for this, and I'd like to say a few things at the end.
Thank you, Everett. Carl Worthington. Nice to be back with all of you, and welcome some new faces up here, too. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly to give you just background of the site, because this isn't a design, it's an opportunity to create a great new neighborhood that would be seniors focused, but it's almost like a resort neighborhood is what we're kind of envisioning, and I think that's what Everett has felt is really important, and the market, as you know, has really changed. And of course, in all of our town center hearings, one of the biggest things from the audience was, where's the senior housing? I want to stay in town. So let's just start out and go through. Let's see, how do I do this thing, or should I do it here? Yeah, so forward. Yeah, if you remember, a number of you were on the boards, or at least around, but about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the site that we were looking at, here's Costco 36, major road coming in on Marshall Road. This is the 12 acres that Everett's talking about. You now have the storage facility here. At that time, we had been talking about a residential type project for seniors, not the same level of seniors as today, but in a resort kind of setting. And after a year or two of working and actually getting unanimous approval on part of that, then later it degraded into some problems and it just never went ahead. So, but that gives a little bit of the background history, the fact that it's adjacent to the shopping, open space, interconnected street networks, close to CDOT with the new transit hubs that you'll have down here is really a major deal, but the one disadvantage is simply the CDOT facility there that we would hope to landscape out and kind of back up to that, because most of the orientation is to the south, east, and the west. The last plan that we had was medium density kind of resort residential, some small office here on 76th Street, and taking advantage of the little pond water features here, but having a really beautiful kind of setting with the hills and rolling in there with views. Your comprehensive plan has actually gone through a couple of evolutions since those days. At that time, the whole neighborhood was residential, but you later then allowed also office, but now you also allow some potential multifamily, and we think this product of the senior kind of resort would really be great. We've got the CDOT facility here, of course, which we would in some fashion be buffering on this side, major access points here, maybe one here, but you still have the long-range connection just for service to the green space. Whether that's a full street or not will come out in the plan. And a possibility of connection here to Marshall Road. It depends on whether that's emergency only. We'll have to go back and revisit with CDOT as to what they feel we can do there. And then there is a small pond here, how we can utilize that. This is the storage unit, and as you know, there is a house outlot there that's not a part of the property at this time. And you all are pretty familiar with the site, but it's got some nice views to the east, the north, and all the way around to the west, where you actually can see the mountaintop, especially when you get up near the railroad right-of-way there. So it's really a nice setting, and yet the topography is not such that it makes it too complicated for building. So sort of a new updated opportunities and constraints would be possible access here, Marshall Road, major access, gateway, trying to maybe enhance somehow a pedestrian connection through by Costco where they have the tire battery thing. I think on the south side there could be a nicer sidewalk and landscaping, so that actually would let seniors move through here rather than just through the gas station type of feeling there. And then we've got these great viewpoints. These are the two highest points of the site that look out both to the mountains as well as the other area. So we're really trying to create kind of a village feeling to this. 2-3 story, probably wouldn't get as tall as this, but something that you feel like you're really in Colorado and it's not just some suburban type of place. And with the walkways and the art, sculpture, landscaping, kind of gardens and that type of thing, we think can really be nice. So these are just kind of metaphors of some of that type of vernacular, whether it's more on the lighter side or the darker side, that's to be determined. The program, as we say, is almost 13 acres. Balfour is just slightly more than that, and it has a little bit more product. It's one of the nicer ones around. We think this will be a number of steps above that, and we would really be looking at the Superior and Broomfield, but particularly the Boulder market also in terms of seniors that don't want to go a little bit farther south. Preliminary program that's all in process right now, maybe 50 duplex cottages, independent living units, 126 assisted and memory care. That will evolve as Everett begins to formalize his agreement with the operator, because the operator is one of the most important parts of the equation as to how you really finalize that. Community benefits, age restricted, over 62, full continuum of care, quality of housing product, no school impacts, no traffic impacts, access to transit, maybe a shuttle, but it's still fairly close, walkable right to shopping across the street, and underbuilding parking as much as we can so that it's concealed and protected. So with that, I'd like to have Everett come back up and maybe just say a couple of final comments. We will be asking for moving into the PD zoning, and also annexation would be happening in parallel, because this site is not annexed to the city yet, so we'd be trying to come in with that, working with you. So that's a really quick windshield tour, and Everett, why don't you just say a couple more closing things, and then we'd love to open it up to questions.
As you know, location and timing are probably the two most important aspects to any project. Our proposal is across the street from a very viable and attractive shopping center, close to the town center. It abuts 20,000 acres of open space. It has visibility from Highway 36, which our consultants and advisors indicate is a major plus. And we propose to anchor the facility with some sort of a monument, such as a clock tower, for visibility from 36. We intend on having meetings with as many senior groups as possible for their input. Please don't view this as just another real estate deal. This project comes with a higher purpose. Please support the seniors of Superior and our vision to provide a high-quality facility with an abundance of activities. We're so excited to be here at this time. The stars have lined up for this concept and this property. The fact that the property hasn't been developed until now is for a good reason. We are here tonight to ask for your support. This project will easily cost north of $50 million, and we wouldn't think of proceeding without your support. This is the right project at the right time and in the right place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Board questions? Mayor Pro Tem Williams, then Trustee Grivers.
You're right, so it's about time we see something like this. And my biggest question would be, any way to make it larger? If this would only fit maybe 300 or 400 people, and so anyway, is there an opportunity to enlarge it?
Do you mind coming back up to the mic and respond? Thank you.
I know the neighbors very well. I could approach them, and it will take a little bit of time to get this done. Balfour is actually 11.81 acres, and they have 302 units.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually have 190 independent units. And they're full, and there's a waiting list.
There's a waiting list,
Right.
right? Yep.
They have...
Any senior facility, there's a waiting
Of that
list.
caliber, anyway.
Yeah, which is, I want to give them a run for their money. I know the Academy and Balfour are kind of at the top of the food chain, but, I want them to get too egoed out for too long. So, because I think this is really a wonderful location. I mean, I used to think that being on 36 was a bad thing. Well, for this kind of a community, this is really a good thing. And backing up to open space is magic for all of us that live here in Boulder County. We recognize what that is. I would certainly explore that. I could get an option on the adjoining property.
And you've talked about that before. I mean, you've been here many, many times in
Yes.
my
Yes.
6-some years. And we talked about, kind of utilizing all of the 76th Street properties and having a vision for it. And you may have that vision here. So I'm just curious to see, where you are able to go with that.
Well, I can do it. It would, it'll take years to complete this. It's
As it is anyway.
yeah, and that would, make it longer. But it's certainly a possibility, and I can explore that. I know that we've gone here before, and it would have been so nice to, to have it be one big community. I know there's also, if you're familiar with some of the names, the Turnbull property, which I think you were envisioning a connection to open space possibly through their property. There's this kind of a long, thin piece that's kind of difficult, to work
To develop,
by itself.
correct.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Trustee Grivers?
Yeah, it's definitely the right time. There's a reason why you haven't built until now. I envision that you will transform 76. that whole area of Superior will be truly transformed, and this will be like a crown jewel, basically. It's beautiful. Even if you match Balfour, I never mind going above them. I would be, perfectly happy and pleased, because that's a great property. My only question, of course, is, and yes, back into open space, heading west is wonderful, is CDOT. That's an eyesore. If they could just go away, it'd be great, but they're not going to go away. How do you mitigate that? You have this beautiful, presentation here, but you're right next door to trucks and sand and, the unfortunate visual eyesore that we have.
No, I think that's a great question. This would be a great public-private partnership where the city would find another piece of dirt and we'd do a big trade. But I think there may be some restrictions on that property. I don't know. 10 years ago, we did explore whether that site could be traded for another location. Certainly ought to be at least talked about if it's too complicated. Last time, Everett, when we did the first plan, the town told us to do all of the properties. We did that, and we hit the wall at the end of the day. It was not a good ending for anybody. Nothing happened, and so Everett's a little bit gun-shy on that, but certainly that is an opportunity, and we certainly would explore that. And I think the CDOT thing, too, that's open a new dialogue and see if there's some new options. And maybe that's impossible, but it'd be wonderful if we could
But
find
assuming
out.
that CDOT is not going to go away, I guess I'm taking that, what can you do to just block them out?
Well, I think both building some really nice articulated walls, but also a couple rows of dense Austrian pine that just creates a beautiful, like you would on a golf course or something. You just literally make it look like it's the forest over there. And as we said, we would probably wind up with some service areas happening right against that property. So in effect, that would be the back loading area for a number of the building or buildings. And then the public streets would be out in the front of all of that. So but we know that's a challenge, but it's not an insurmountable thing. Plant it with vines on the walls, and pretty soon you'd hardly know it was there, like you would around a golf course.
And then what about that little property, that house? Oh, that's over there. Oh,
So,
sorry.
Nancy Blackwood.
Yes, go ahead, Ann.
With Carl and Everett. Because the site is so skinny and narrow and east-west, there is a really great opportunity to put the service on the backside and orient everything to the south, which is really the best orientation anyways for all of the units. So that was another thing that we were looking at. Very, very schematically, how would you locate the buildings? And so the idea would be that we would orient as much as possible towards the south.
Okay.
And make that the back door, make that the service access, because there's a lot of service involved in senior housing.
And then that little property, that little house that's there, that doesn't belong to you, what's their situation? And would that, yes, that, right there.
If you could come back up to the mic, thanks.
I've approached them.
You have.
And came up with a really silly price.
Okay.
Way beyond reality.
Okay.
So I don't think that's workable. And
Just curious to see if you can.
No, it's the right thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It would be really nice, and I'm really sorry that I missed the opportunity, because he bought it for a song from foreclosure, just a ridiculously cheap price. And he wants 5 times what he paid for it.
But overall, I mean, for me, thumbs up, very exciting. Very exciting. It's needed, and it would be a great draw. Not, you talk about the citizens of Superior that are getting up there in age, but I'm thinking it's more regional, too. I mean, we'll bring people from Boulder and from other areas as well.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Dozell, and then Hanson.
Thank you. I like the looks of it. I always like what Carl and his team designs for ideas of what the building. Yeah, I think it's great. The one question I have is the 40 memory care rooms. I know you talked about it's really important to get the right operator or administrator for these facilities. The duplex cottages, not so much. The independent living units, yes, that is a need. even more so for 126 assisted living units. But the 4 memory care rooms are hugely important as far as managing that, because that's not, those people unfortunately are there not to enjoy the amenities that are there. I know this because my mother, she's very competent, but there's also, all of these are in the unit that she lives in South Dakota. And the biggest problem is dealing with the 40 memory care rooms. So I asked, is that something that you really want to have in this concept? Or is that something that people have said put in because of the fact that Alzheimer's is such a big problem? Because the issue is managing it again. You know, it's hugely intensive management for those rooms.
The consultants I have indicated that is a fairly good number and percentage that we should have, because we want to have it as full service as we can, and, you know, provide for everyone, not just, I agree that I think the independence units will be more than that. I mean, I'm literally talking about half of what Balfour has, and this is such a far superior location to theirs. I don't mean to put theirs down, but it's just plain.
Well, you're in Superior, so it has to be Superior.
There you go.
So,
But
yeah.
the final answer really would have to be left to and I'm interviewing several people as to who the operator is going to be. And it's important to me to get the absolute best one, because this is a big financial endeavor.
Yeah.
And it needs to be right. I mean, I think that, as I mentioned, I don't know, the timing is right. It's every morning when I'm shaving, I look in the mirror, you know, when I bought 76th Street, I had brown hair, you know.
Yeah.
I get the picture. So.
Well, I think it's a great idea, too.
Thank you.
I just, and it's up to you to determine how you're going to manage it and what you're going to put in there, but having been through this for the last 4 years and with some of the managers of this, it's a huge task to do this, 40 memory care people, in amongst the people that feel like they're actually living there rather than just existing in the final days of your life. And that's the thing I would recommend too, is that the people that live in the duplexes, the independent living, and some of the assisted living units really want to be part of a community. They don't want to be in a nursing home. And so I would caution against to being too quick to have part of it look like a nursing home. And again, from personal experience, I can talk to you more about that later if you are interested. But I would like the community aspect and living there as a senior, but I don't know that we need to have the last days. You know, there's a difference in, are you going there to live or are you going there to finish out your days? Yeah. And that's a big difference in the way that even the management team manages it. So the operators really have to have the right. And when you have memory care units, what I've experienced is that you have to have different type of operators doing those two different types of facilities. And then sometimes you have problems with integrating those. Thank you.
You're right on the money. I know enough about it to know that, but they have it down to a science. They know not to even have a window looking over this. I mean, they've been doing it for a while, and they know what to do. And you're exactly right.
Can I add something? I have a little bit of experience too with grandmas and grandpas and mothers and fathers now. And what's really most important is that the memory care units, when you've got a husband and wife, a couple, who are and they're in different situations, to be able to be in the same place, even if it's across the courtyard or whatever, it's so important to have that opportunity. So I've found that, you know, in my experience, my aunt and uncle were a prime example. My aunt was in great shape, and my uncle was suffering from Alzheimer's, and they wouldn't allow them to be together and have nursing care in the assisted living. So he had to go to an entirely different facility. And if there was a place where you could have both those services together, and as Everett said, you design it such that you're not overlooking the independent living is not overlooking. But that, I think that's why you would have memory care, probably.
Yeah, that's a very good point, but I think what you'll find, if you look at the numbers, very few couples actually get in that situation where one's on the assisted living side and the other, if you go through the numbers. But you're absolutely right, and what you also find is that, unfortunately, the spouse that is cognitively still together wants to go visit their spouse that isn't, and really it's more of a negative impact on the cognitively able person because they see their spouse in such a debilitated state and they don't recognize them. But
Right.
I see what you're saying, and I would just ask again to think about, or I would.
Well, and it really
It's
is.
it's just a personal.
Yeah.
It's not, it has nothing to do with agreeing to or not. I
Sure.
like the concept, and I think that it's a good idea.
Well, and as Everett said, a lot of it has to do with the operator and what the
The
mixture
operator is
is.
key.
It's key.
Very key.
Trustee Hansen.
Yeah, my experience is that having all those together is a really good thing. That, as I'm a financial planner, and I have some of my clients that their extended family doesn't want to see them have to move to a whole new location, that they wish they had the services available there, because it's a pain to have to move when you're in that stage of your life. I like the idea of having them all together. When I looked through this originally, the first thing that popped up was Balfour. I think this is an incredible looking structure. The one question I did have, though, with over 250 units, in the community benefits, you have no traffic impacts. Was there any additional study done on traffic? Because I would have imagined that there would be considerable traffic on just that one on 76th Street. There's not much other way to go. So I would think that there would be some traffic impacts.
I think, I agree. The independent units will have traffic, but, the average count on a single-family home is about a little over, I think they claim like 10.2 trips per day or something. Even the independents here would never have that. The people aren't working. They would probably just have one car. I mean, they're just not going to have that many trips in and out every day. So actually, to say that there's no traffic impact is getting a little too excited, I think. I mean, it's a lot less than any regular, typical development, but there'll be some, but not a great deal.
Yeah, that was my only concern about this, and I look forward to seeing more as this develops. So I think it's great. Thank you.
Trustee Pennington.
So I live right around the corner from the Academy in Boulder, and that was a big issue. That was a really big issue when the project came through. And it's proven there's the program at the Academy is such that they have shuttles and of course you're walkable to shopping, and this is a great site. The Academy is a little bit further away from shopping, but I think that because that's built into the program, that you have shuttles and you go places in like a little in groups.
Mm-hmm.
That in and of itself does reduce the parking significantly. I mean the traffic significantly. So it's all about community. It's kind of like co-housing,
Right.
where you do get that benefit of everyone together and working together as a community and sharing rides and things like that.
Now, I understand that you have group rides to the market and all that kind of stuff, but you do have kids and grandkids and all
We do.
that come and visit. So, especially at a
That's
nice
a
place
good-
like this, people are going to want to come more often. So,
That's a good point.
I would just be cognizant of that,
Absolutely.
too.
No, thanks.
Trustee Pennington.
I think it's a very exciting concept, and it's light years beyond what I thought would happen to this property. So congratulations on that. I certainly echo the sentiment of others who have spoken that to the extent you can wrap up all the available land around there, I see that as only a good thing. And I would also not be constrained by your what you said earlier about 3 stories. We've approved 4 stories for the Superior Town Center, and if this is a PD, we can go beyond, some of those code town height limits, et cetera, within reason. We can't block view corridors, et cetera, but the interesting thing is this is very well situated not to block view corridors. So as you put your plans together, I wouldn't artificially impose the constraint of 3 when in fact your market might support 4. So I say go for it. You can always reduce.
Yeah, there's your way of increasing the number of units.
Yeah.
Trustee Sorelli.
So I just would like to welcome you back. I was on the Planning Commission when you came through your last time and was a supporter of that project, and you got past us, and I think then there was a comprehensive plan amendment, and anyway, welcome back. I support this. I echo Trustee Hanson's comments about the full-service aspect of this being nice. I've had personal experiences too, and you don't want to have to pick up and go somewhere else at this stage. If there's a way to stage your needs in one place, it's a great benefit. I'm afraid you'll have waiting lists on all of it. That's the one problem with that thinking, but still.
That's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, I encourage you.
Good, thank you.
Okay, one more question. On the townhomes, the cottages, would you sell those, or would they?
No.
Because I think, doesn't Balfour do that? Don't they actually, you own it?
No, I
but you
think the
can't?
Academy does, but I don't think Balfour does.
Okay.
You buy into it, and then you pay rent.
I've never seen anything like Balfour. This is confirmed. There's a 2-year waiting list for a cottage. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's not unbelievable. We boomers are coming.
Yes. Here we come. I know. It'll be 70 in April, so.
I'll close out with voicing my support as well. I think it'll be a wonderful addition for the town and badly needed, and full steam ahead.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is item 7, the consent agenda. We've pulled item G.
Yeah.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams for the passing of the consent agenda, second by Trustee Gregoris. I think we need a roll call vote on this.
Are we spending money?
Yeah.
Reagan,
Contracts.
Yes.
Pennington,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Gregoris.
Yes.
Folsom,
Yes.
Gozell,
Yes.
Surratt.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes. Okay, item 7G is the adoption of a resolution approving an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with urban drainage and flood control regarding improvements for Coal Creek upstream of McCaslin Boulevard, Superior Metropolitan District Number 1. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So I pulled this, and I had a few questions here. I'll kind of go through them, and I think I know some answers, but some not. So one of the things I wanted to know was, do these improvements, will they be able to contain a 500-year flood? And as I read, that it's not correct. It would be a 100-year flood. Okay. And I know that's been discussed before. I don't know what it would take to do a 500-year flood, but it'd be nice to know what or how much more would need to be done and how much more funds that would be to do such. So that's one question.
Okay.
All right. I'll move on, and you can just answer them when we're done here. And then I wanted to make sure that there isn't any other concerns from other property owners that have not come forward, that are now coming forward just because they've now heard about it, they're nearby, whatever it is. So that's another question. that may not have spoken up in the past. Let's see here. And then this one is something that we did discuss, and I haven't seen anything more about it. The channel improvements and including the bridge improvement, because it's not a complete rebuild. Will this enhance a steady flow? You know, whether it's a trickle or whatever it is, but a constant flow in the creek compared to what it is now. And then, because the reason why I'm calling that up is because with the town center, we might want that. I mean, that is one of our goals, is to have a steady trickle flow all the way through to the town center, because that will be a draw. And then the other thing, will the town be included in the final design? I'm assuming we already have the final design. We're already good to go. Okay. Alex.
Alex Arno, Public Works Director. Okay, first on the 500-year flood, the question was raised several times during the process, and to design the 500-year flood means severe changes to the grade on 2nd Avenue, for example. You'd have to raise that grade substantially. You'd have to widen the opening. Plus, to get the 500 flood to the 2nd Avenue Bridge and go through it is a much more extensive project than we had planned, and much more severe impacts on a lot of the property owners.
And
that's what
more
I figured.
expensive.
Oh, yeah, obviously, yeah, yes.
And more what?
And more expensive.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. But that would have taken more right away.
Yes.
Okay.
The channel would have to be much wider. There would be a lot more property that we'd be impacting in order to get that channel, to get that amount of water to the bridge and then through McCaslin.
Matt, what was the flood in September of 13? What was that the equivalent to?
500.
So that was a 500-year flood.
Pretty close.
So currently, without any of these improvements, what does it contain? A 100-year flood, or are we talking?
No,
50?
we estimated about a 25-year storm
Okay.
at the
So
2nd
this-
Avenue Bridge. That the 2nd Avenue Bridge as it exists today
Okay.
can accommodate about a 25-year storm.
All right, and so then the other question was, are there any other property owners? This is not for you to answer, but they're here if they are
be
here.
Yeah.
Anyone else coming
Okay,
forward?
right, I don't know. I mean, they may.
Well, I'm just
consider-
giving an opportunity, just in case there's somebody nearby that didn't know about it and is now running down to town hall going, wait.
Let me just give you a couple of updates since you last discussed this back in July, and you gave us the go-ahead to proceed with the design of the overbank option. So we're leaving existing bridge in place, we're putting another culvert right next to it, and then we're doing flood channel improvements upstream to get the water to that bridge and the overbank culvert and take most of the properties out of the 100-year floodplain.
All in one phase.
Right, correct.
Right, so we've been proceeding on the design. We've submitted, made a submittal to Fish and Wildlife and to Army Corps of Engineers, so they're reviewing it now. And they've made, I think we've got preliminary approval. We've gotten some requirements that we have to address, like we can't do some of this construction where the Preble's mouse habitat is, so we have to wait till November to do any construction near that habitat. So we got those approvals that we're proceeding on. We've gotten design to a point, it's about a 30-40% design. We brought on a contractor. Urban Drainage has a procedure, it's essentially design build. So we have a contractor on board. We went through a qualification process with some bidding requirements on certain of the items, and we selected a contractor a couple weeks ago. So he's on board, and then he's giving us insight on how to construct this and make changes to get the best value for our dollars. We've defined the impacts on the properties, and we've been negotiating with 5 or 6 property owners that are going to be impacted. We've given them the the easement proposal. Here's the easement we want in terms of both temporary construction and then long-term maintenance easement. So we've met with those property owners probably at least twice in some cases and gone over what trees were taken out, how it's affecting their property. They've come back and made their requirements, given us some things that they want. So we're doing those negotiations. So we're well into that process. And then we expect that the construction would start in July. And if the board would like to see, the final design as it gets close, we certainly can bring that back. But today we were just doing this agreement. This amendment to the IGA is essentially putting money. They budgeted funds and we budgeted funds, so we're both going to put it into an account that we can draw on for construction. So that's simply what's happening tonight.
Is the town the lead then?
No, the urban drainage is the lead.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
And this is the same amount of money that was approved
Yes.
last July.
Yes.
It
So
was 1.2.
You approved that as part of the budget process. They've approved it. So now we're taking the money and putting it in account, so now we can draw it on it for construction.
Okay, and wait, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not completed. All right, so then the last question was, will these improvements kind of enhance a steady flow of the creek?
A steady flow, it really depends, the Coal Creek is appropriated for irrigation water. So during the summer, a lot of that water is diverted into community ditch and other places. So it essentially becomes a trickle during the summer. We haven't really addressed that, tried to see if we could acquire water to allow it to flow, but that hasn't been a...
I think that's something
we
need to consider.
Have to work with the RC Superior on, I think, and see if there's a way that we might be able to do that. But that would be how I would proceed with it. Because I think Alex is right. I mean, we could go out to look to try to acquire more water rights to have flow, but water rights are kind of expensive, and I don't know what the price would be and how much volume we could get.
Well, maybe we should research all our options and see
Yeah.
where we can go with this, because I think it's going to make a big difference for the town center, I feel, when you have some running water in your creek corridor instead of it being completely dried out. So that's...
Certainly, that has not been a part of our project. If the board would like us to look into that, we would try to come
Okay,
back.
well, I was just wondering if that was part of any part of the components here, but apparently
It
not.
hasn't been.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Trustee Hanson, and then Dozell.
So the construction process, the bridge will still remain open and you can...
Right now, we're evaluating alternatives of how to construct it. And our latest thinking is to build a shoe-fly detour about 30 or 40 feet to the east of the existing road. I haven't talked to one of the property owners here, but put a series, 2 or 3 culverts, 48-inch culverts, to handle the low flow, and then put gravel and fill on it, so you would kind of bypass the bridge and come around it, so we can tear out the area where we need to put the new culvert.
So you'd put that in first,
Yes.
then do the construction on the bridge, and then remove that?
Yes.
So, okay. Because that's the only way in and out of that.
Right, well, we've looked at other options as well, but I don't want to disclose some other options, but that's the one that we're looking at, and we're working with the contractor to see if this is feasible, and once it is, that'll be something that we would bring back to the board and to the public to show them what we're going to do. So we're evaluating that right now.
And how long did you say the construction was anticipated?
It'd probably be about 2 months when the actual bridge would be closed, or, where we'd have that in place. I think that's where we'd have that detour in place.
Yeah.
We may have more construction. It'll probably be 4 to 6 months with all the channelization improvements and other things we'd have to do to the bridge, but we would have it open probably within 2 months.
Okay. Good, thanks.
Trustee Dozell?
Back in July, before the Planning Commission, which I was on at that time, and then the board, the overbank culvert, which was what I think the recommendation was to go forward with, was 1.2 million. Now, I'm looking in the document here that we got tonight, and I don't understand where the $1.6 million is coming from. As amended, it's showing design, right-of-way, construction, and the grand total of 1,640. Is that two different numbers are we talking about?
That's all the money that will be spent after all is said and done. We spent a couple $100,000 with all the planning that we did early on in the project, 3-4 years ago, through this whole process.
Okay. Okay, so some of that money, it's still going to cost us basically the $1.2 million round number for this project.
For the construction.
For the construction and the flood mitigation.
Yes.
Okay, and that, if I remember right, was a real big reason for doing this, was the confining or constraining and moving the floodplain, and fixing that issue for the 100-year flood, which was a very big benefit that we were getting by joining in and getting money from urban drainage. That's why we wanted to do this. And so I think that we definitely need to move ahead with this urban drainage agreement because we want to get that money to help with this floodplain.
Again, this is money that the town has put in. I mean, you all have a property tax, goes to urban drainage.
Right.
And so we're getting some of this back.
We want to use it then for our projects, right. So, okay.
Okay, Trustee Pennington, then let's do public comment.
Timeframes. When was the flood of 2013? What month?
September.
So what
That's exactly what I was asking.
emergency thing are we putting in place if we do the narrower culverts, the diversion, and serious storms hit?
Well, right now, we've acquired the Shan property, and we've improved the driveway. We've put asphalt millings on the driveway and made it passable for a passenger vehicle. So we've got that in place, and that will be opened up if, in case this, we do have the major storm. September is kind of an odd month to have major storms. Normally, it's
they're unpredictable.
June, July,
though.
so.
Property damage is more what I was considering, because if you've got narrow outlet, you're going to have more property damage as the creek overflows its banks. So, to me, that whole plan has to be very sound on a what-if basis. What if?
Again, we were planning on starting construction April. And because a portion of the project affects the Pebble Mouse habitat, and we couldn't start that until November, the contractor just suggested, why, instead of mobilizing twice, why don't you start in July and do the whole project, in the 3 or 4 month period. So that was his suggestion. If you,
I would actually like to see a couple of paragraphs, whatnot, come back to the board about emergency planning. What if another huge storm or storm system hits like that one? And, I like the attitude that we can now exit out of Shan, but also what would happen to those properties around there, and what is our plan to minimize potential damage should that storm hit?
Well, I mean, this project's going to take, that's in my mind, that's why we need to do this project, because by completing this project, it's going to take a lot of those properties that were impacted in September of 2013 out of the floodplain.
I agree, but...
and we can't just sit around and wait till the next storm.
Well, no, what I'm thinking more is we need to assure the adequacy of the diversion, to divert enough water should, hell freeze over and we have those storms, so that we don't have a dire, unanticipated result. So that's what I'm asking for. I absolutely think we need to do this, but we also have to have advanced planning to make sure every eventuality is covered, or every probability or potentiality is covered.
okay. You're talking about the short term, if something hits before this is in place.
Well, are those three things, 3 culverts, you said, you would put in?
Well,
are those sufficient, or do we need 4 or 5?
No, I mean, to me, those are a throwaway. If we get the big flood and they wash away, I mean, we're
But are
not-
they sufficient enough to move floodwater if a flood occurs?
No.
So if they're not,
And
and
this is
that's what
and this is
happens to those properties. So you get my point. I don't have to talk about it anymore.
Yeah,
We
and we're
just
talking
need,
about with the contractor, how what happens in a flood, if big flood comes, is it going to affect
while
things?
you're doing the work.
Right. But in this case, I think that they'll get washed out. I mean, it's not designed for the 100-year flood. It's
The culverts.
It's
Right.
designed for the trickle flows.
So what happens to that water then if they're washed out? We're in the middle of construction, and construction takes several months, and heavy storms hit during that. What happens when you're undergoing construction and you don't have any way to move all that water? What happens?
Well, it's washed out. I mean, we don't put in a, we're not.
But
putting
something's flooded,
We're not putting a
right?
dam in to back water up. We're not putting a dam in. This is a low water crossing. The water goes over it and through down.
So you're saying the creek, as it is now, would still function?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, trustee
Just
Gregoris,
a
and
quick
then
question.
public.
What's your time frame to completion?
We're looking at the end of this year. Maybe it'll go into January, February of next year. But we're hoping to get the bridge done this fall. Maybe some of the channel work, since we can't start till after November, maybe some of that carries on to next year.
So we're going to have to hope and pray no major storms in the next 12 months.
Yeah. Okay, public comment.
Gladys Forshee, 404 South Third Avenue. I have 6 comments and then an answer to Deb's question. Excuse me. One question I had was, it says that there will be structures that will be removed. I want to know if this is the Kuffner SWAT house that's going to be removed. There wasn't any clarification about that. I agree that the funds need to be spent regarding cleaning the creek. However, because this should have been done in 2014, and the old ditch up at the top should have been done immediately after this flood, and it wasn't. What I am questioning is, this shows that special district money is going to be used in this. Original Town is not in the special districts. I have done an open records request for the intergovernmental agreement regarding the special districts when those were created, and I just did that today, so of course there hasn't been time to get that done. I have a newspaper article from December 3rd of 1986 that clearly states that Original Town is not to be in the special districts at all that was created for Rock Creek. I have a letter that was sent out November 4th of 1997. It was sent to Original Town residents, signed by Bruce Williams, the town manager at that time, that I will read the second paragraph. Not including residents of the original town in the districts was done so that in the case the districts failed, property owners in the original town would not be required to repay debt owed by the districts. Water was provided by the district's properties to the properties in original town without the requirement of inclusion into District 1. This shows District 1 is money is coming from that and is being worked with. District 1 is for water, utilities, not for drainage and construction. And if I get these intergovernmental agreements, I'm hoping that the town board will read these because of the fact that I think you need to be educated a great deal. So this money should not be used for that project. You've been told in the past that the bridge that staff has presented is not what residents are liking. That bridge that is there and the open space north of that bridge, the water flowed very well without backups. You put this new bridge in, you're going to have backups, and you're going to have backups on 3rd Avenue going north, and you're going to have backups of water going up Charles Street. we simply don't want this design at all. Now, any money that is going to be spent on this is going to be illegal. Why? Well, let me remind you of the fact that the election in this town was illegal. And you all know that it was illegal. There are only 3 members on this town board that are legal, and that's not a quorum to spend money. Now, none of you have done anything about correcting that scenario at all. And it needs to be corrected. There has been resident input in the past about this, that we don't want this design. This right here, this letter of 97, there has never been another amendment done that. No residents in original town have never been notified that they were included in District 1, and that is not right. One question that I have is the fact that hackers have not been allowed by the town to rebuild. I want to know why Alex has the right to tell someone not to rebuild on their property after the flood. And this has come directly from the hacker family. So I want an answer to that question. As far as, Deb, your question about the steady flow, that can be very easily done. All the town has to do is have enough backbone to take it legally to Boulder County and stop Boulder County from diverting the water rights upstream. There will be a flow of water through town. I have hollered and hollered about that, and of course, nobody knows anything. They don't want to do anything about it.
Is that the community ditch you're talking about?
Above the community ditch, if they go above that and take it legally to Boulder County to divert that water from out of that community ditch, you'll have a flow of water through town, like there used to be years ago.
Now, that's owned by FRICO, right? The community ditch?
Well, we have a share in, it's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
So, that water can be diverted down through original town like it used to come years ago.
Okay.
But of course, in the past, I've been told, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. You better check into it, because that's going to give you your flow of water. Stop this resolution. It's illegal.
Okay, thank you for the comments. Any additional comments? Then we'll address questions. Any additional comments? Okay, any follow-up board questions to the comments?
Did you have a comment in the back? Yes.
He's on it.
Way back for it, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Never mind. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So Superior Metropolitan District 1 is water, sewer, storm. What is this classified as?
It's a stormwater drainage improvement project.
And, I mean, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have this all covered, but I just need to know. So how is this stormwater? So the creek, does it eventually become stormwater in some way? Is it used? Is the water?
I mean, it's the same, if
It's
you have
just a
a
creek.
storm event, whether it's flowing through the creek or through our storm drains, the water that's collected through the storm drainage system, storm drains, curb and gutter, or just the creek, it all flows. The storm water that flows in the streets ends up in the creek.
Okay,
at some
so
point.
it's stormwater from elsewhere, we're using the creek.
Mm-hmm.
So the creek is
From
part of the
upstream.
storm, okay.
Yep, yep.
Okay, I'm just trying to
Yep.
figure out
Yeah,
the path.
Does the attorney concur with it's legal to use SMD1 funds for this?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to make a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? I thought she. I'd like to make a motion for resolution number SMD 1-2, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 approving an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with Urban Drainage and Flood Control District regarding final design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction of drainage and flood control improvements for Coal Creek upstream of McCaslin Boulevard. Agreement number 09-02.06C.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. Second by Trustee Hansen. Do we roll call this?
I would,
Or discussion? Discussion?
I would like Alex to come forth and address that concern that this bridge will create backups on Charles and north of the bridge. Do you have any concerns about that?
No, and we've been working with Urban Drainage, who are the experts. They do this throughout the metro area, and they've looked at all the hydraulic modeling for this and have approved the overbank culvert concept. We're widening the opening so more water can go through. We're not restricting if we were restricting the opening, yeah, water could back up. But since we're widening the opening, more water can go through the bridge, and that's why the floodplain limits would come down.
Okay.
So we have no concern about the concept that we've suggested here.
Okay. Motion and a second. Let's roll call vote.
Cirilli?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Thank you. Passes. Okay, item number 8 is discussion of partnership options with Impact Sports.
Thank you, Mayor. Impact Sports Management, Cornerstone Orthopedics, and their partner group, Elevate Management, presented twice to the board on December 8th, 2014 and January 26, 2015, partnership ideas to provide indoor recreation space for Superior residents at their facility that's going to be located in the Superior Town Center. They're here tonight to answer questions that the board had at the last presentation, some follow-up questions, present some site plans of what the facility might look like, and to discuss any other issues or topics that the board might have. A couple partnership ideas, just for those who may not be aware. One option was a 2-story, 14,000 square foot facility with an annual cost of $350,000, with a minimum 5-year partnership commitment. The second option was a 1-story, 10,000 square foot facility with an annual cost of $275,000 and a minimum 5-year partnership commitment. Staff has come up with a couple of funding scenarios that might be possible for the board's consideration. One would be a membership fee. Anybody that uses the facility would pay a monthly membership fee, similarly like you would to a rec center. And then we would use savings from general fund and debt refunding to help offset any additional costs that aren't covered by the membership fees. The second scenario would be membership fees again, use of the portion of the town's current mill levy credit, and then any remaining would be general fund debt savings that we will see this year through our refunding of our debt. Dr. Sheen is here, and I'll allow him to present his follow-up with the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Good evening. Thank you for having me back. My name's Joe Sheen, Cornerstone Orthopedics, and I apologize that Mr. Andre Blum couldn't be here tonight. He was otherwise busy in Chicago, and not as eloquent, nor do I have a cool South African accent, but try to get my point across. And I'd like to kind of just make this presentation fairly short, but I want to cover 3 main things. One is just to kind of clarify what has been talked about before. Number 2, get to the answers that came up at the last board meeting. And number 3, answer any of the questions that you might all have at the end of this presentation. And what I wanted to start out with was I had tried to embed a video in here. It didn't really work out, but in the memo I put in a link to a YouTube video of who we are at Impact, so folks can kind of get a sense exactly what we do. And what we do at Impact is a lot of youth training. And we have a little 2-minute video that we can show here later if anybody is interested in watching. But I think it's important for the board to understand that what we do at Impact is just a smaller version of what we want to do here at the town center. And I think Ryland is also going to talk a little bit about that and as we move forward in the presentation. But what we're talking about, as folks know, is the campus that's already planned on right here. It already includes, there's a pointer, but the section that Impact Sports Performance is building is a gym and fitness area with utilization of the soccer fields, of course, and this whole campus is going to feel like basically there you go. It's going to feel like one big camp, a sports campus. So this safe splash space, or the old pool space, is what we were going to propose as a partnered facility that is an addition to everything else that goes on. So this is in addition to what we're already doing here in this space and what we're already doing here on the turf field. And so in our space that we are planning on building right now, that we're in the planning stages and drawing stages, as you come in through the front door here, you're going to go into a rehab center area, a fitness center area with weights and cardio, about a full basketball court with 2 volleyballs going sideways, and then 2 large garage doors that go into the soccer space. And then the door that goes into this space will be the 14,000 square foot facility that we're proposing. And in this, we've gotten some diagrams just to kind of see space planning of what would go in here. But the idea is that this proposed site is jointly considered part of the whole fitness facility that we would want to manage and provide for the town. On the second floor of the impact space, this is open to the gym below, and this is a multi-purpose room where we currently have batting cages lined up, but it'll be a studio and a multi-purpose room and education room as well as offices. And so what we wanted to do was make it so that folks can understand that we're not just building, we're taking over a 7,000 square foot footprint, building a 14,000 square foot 2-story building with fitness in it, but it basically we would use this whole part of the campus to create our programs. So conceptual review, as Andre brought up last time, the town of Superior, through its survey and conversation in the past, has a desire for some sort of indoor recreational space. And we felt like there was an opportunity that existed for the establishment of a low-risk, cost-effective partnership. And that's the key term is I want to make sure we get back into is that this is a partnership between Impact and the town of Superior and what we're trying to create for its residents. So Impact Sports Management, I really don't have a name, we're just calling it Impact Sports Management. We're proposing a potential partnership with the town of Superior in providing an indoor fitness facility. We believe that such a partnership would generate an excellent value for the town and its residents, and we view that the Boulder Valley Ice and Impact facilities currently under development is going to be a premier destination in sports and health performance facility, not just in Colorado, but on a national level, as it already is. But the main key and the reason why we're doing this is to establish a health and wellness footprint for the town of Superior and its residents within the town center project. And that's kind of where our expertise is in health and wellness. And so I want to break down the questions that have been asked into 2 sections. One, I kind of grouped these questions mostly about programming. What additional needs from the survey can be met? What is out of the question for the facility? What type of program is going to be going on? Who will be doing the programming? And will it be in a group fitness space? So these questions are going to be addressed by this next slide. And actually, Ryland's going to kind of go into a little bit about that.
My name is Ryland Reed. I'm the Director of Sports Performance over at Impact Sports. I'm kind of the day-to-day operations guy over there. So as far as the programs go, I'm in control of designing and implementing all of our programs currently at Impact. Most of what we do right now is geared towards the youth athlete, youth in high school. We do very little pro athletes. We probably have, I could count on two hands how many pro guys we have in there. We do some elite level. We have a lot of college athletes, especially in the summer. But I would say most of what we do is programmed around the middle school age to high school age athlete. What we don't offer right now are some of these programs that could cater towards more of the family and recreation athlete and adult fitness. So we threw together some ideas. By any means do I think that these are baked out. I think Patrick and I have had several conversations in the past about some programming ideas, and I think that going forward that it would be really a partnership between the town of Superior and figuring out who the residents are, what is the demographic, and what are the needs of the town, and we design the programs and the facility, for that matter, around what the residents need. So we would obviously have some cardiovascular interval training. I think that's it's a popular item. Basically, you're talking cardio equipment, treadmills, ellipticals, things like that. We'd have yoga. I know talking with Patrick that there's been good traction with the yoga programs currently in the town of Superior, but obviously when the weather gets cold and you have days like this that those programs can't go on, and I think this would offer an alternative to have that take the weather factor out of it and have that inside. We could have Pilates, dance, Zumba, sport-specific rehab and training such as ski fitness classes, different types of boot camps. We've talked about, I feel like, Boulder and Superior is kind of the mecca for the triathlete. So we're talking about cycling classes and running classes and essentially having a home base for some of those programs that are already in place with the town of Superior, but now you would have a place to meet and to do extracurricular exercises outside of just running and cycling, to cross-train, if you will, and also provide some nutritional expertise to those athletes. Providing programs for seniors, Silver Sneakers programs, occupational programs, boot camps and group fitness, weight loss, nutrition programs. And then we would also have the capacity outside of the 14,000 square feet to move over to the impact side where we have the basketball court and we have the turf field where we could offer some youth and adult basketball leagues, volleyball leagues, soccer, lacrosse, things that the town is, from what I understand, is outsourced to offer to your residents. Now we could keep it in-house and run those programs more effectively. Some of the other programs that Patrick and I discussed were some Boulder prep classes. We talked about the youth basketball leagues and things like that. Right now, for example, we are partnered with Monarch Little League, and we have been for the last couple of years. Some things that we're offering to them, they come over and they use our space as indoor practice time on the weekends. They hire our staff. It was supposed to be last weekend, but we canceled it with the snow. But this weekend, our staff is going to help them with their evaluations of their players so they can help put the right players at the right levels on the right teams. We're also running a clinic for all their players at a discounted price. It's called the 5-Tool Baseball Camp. Focuses on not just baseball skills, but athletic training and speed and body control, things like that. And we offered it to the Monarch Little League at a discount so they can come in and join those programs. And then we're also offering a coaches clinic. We're running a coaches clinic on April 4th to work with their coaches and help them get caught up to speed on some new terminology and practice techniques and things like that, injury prevention, arm care. and things that can help the kids in the baseball world be safe and be productive. So to kind of summarize this, I think that there's a plethora of ideas that we can come up with, and as creative as Patrick and I can be around the town's demands, we can design those programs in a small class group fitness setting, and also the conceptual design of the building of how we want the traffic flow and the flow of the programs to go from the fitness to the functional to the cardiovascular equipment. I think Dr. Sheen will show you a couple slides later of an idea of what we want that we think the facility could look like. But again, I think it's in its infancy in the design, and it would take some creativity and programming with Patrick and I to make it come to fruition.
Thanks. I think the summary of that is that Rylan and Patrick, this is something we want them to work together, figure out what the town of Superior wants, the resident wants, put together a tailor-made program to fulfill those needs. And that's already what we're good at. In addition to this is just going to be icing on the cake. So what we did is we did go ahead and, just for kind of space management type purposes, took that 7,000 square foot footprint and what could we do with it? So this is by no means what it looks like. We're basically just doing some space planning because we know we do need free weights, we do need some cardio. Probably stick the elevator out of the way. Or what does the second floor look like? Could we, and we would have. This is the second floor now. There it is. And then, we would have childcare in there. A lot of functional rehab is what we like to do. So it's not just people going there and lifting weights. It's pulling sleds, flipping tires. It's doing CrossFit type activities. And do we put different multi-purpose rooms or Pilates studio? And so we're just going to throw around all those ideas, all once again based on what the residents want. So the idea is that we're not just filling up 7,000 or 14,000 square feet with bikes and weights. It's not what it is, and that's not how we work. We do a lot of functional type of rehab. And in addition to that, because this is all aligned with what we're trying to do at Cornerstone Orthopedics in creating a health and wellness type of program, the community seminars that we provide will include concussion management, senior care, fall prevention, joint health, aging issues, nutrition, education, injury management, coaches corner. Currently we do a Safe Kids program, basically having programs on weekends for kids on different safety issues. Within that building, we will provide child care, locker rooms, although it wasn't shown on the diagram. And then on the site will also be physical therapy, chiropractic, and massage therapy, which once again is part of that health and wellness. And so the second part of the questions can be grouped in basically long-term, short-term, what's the solution look like here? And I think it's important to know that, first of all, just for clarification, this whole slide that was brought up earlier where we had a site A and a site B, I think there's some confusion around that. What had happened was the town had come back to us and said, what if we wanted a cheaper option? How can we go with a cheaper option? Well, then we said, well, we could maybe just build one story, 7,000 square feet, take the second floor of the impact facility of 3,000 square feet. That gives you 10,000 square feet, and that would be a cheaper solution instead of building out a whole 14,000 square foot facility. But of course, this is in no way what we would recommend because there's a lot that could be happening here, and we need all that space. So that's just a point of clarification. So long term, we do believe that this entire campus of Boulder Valley Ice, soccer, impact, adult fitness will bring an unparalleled recognition to the town and brand Superior as a premier destination for health and wellness and sports rehab and performance. But this facility should not be considered a rec center. We're not really building a rec center. We're doing a facility that will satisfy the wishes of the residents to have indoor fitness space, associated programs, along with state-of-the-art weight room and functional training space. And the key term here is functional training space. The proposed facility could also provide an excellent medium-term strategy. This is not really a short-term solution. We see it as a medium-term strategy for the town, which will work towards an ultimate long-term plan for the town in regards to a full-service recreation center down the road. And we're brainstorming the town is investing in the center as we are investing in the center. So the town we could look at having a staggered equity position over time. That we go ahead and run it, and in 5 years, the town starts not buying in, but they already have bought in, so they would get an equity position at 5, 10, 15. And basically, this staggered equity position, which we can talk more about, which is just we've talked about in the past, but really haven't spent my time on, it really makes this an investment rather than a cost to the town. Because at the end of the time, this facility belongs to the town. We're helping run it. We're a partner in running it. But and then also we can raise the roof and go up another 2 stories, as PUD does allow for 28 for 4 stories. That's something we can do. But what we cannot do here is a pool. There's just no way that we can put a pool on the ground level and build up from there. It just doesn't work there. Can a pool go somewhere else, alongside, across the street, maybe in a different part of the town? That could be something we can certainly look at. But what we are really concentrating on is what we can do with this 14,000 square foot in addition to what we're already planning on building to meet the needs of the town.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions from the board? Who wants to start? Okay. Trustee Dozell.
I guess I have a question on the layout again, the floor plan. I see that of the whole Boulder Valley Ice Indoor Sports and Medical Office Building. The gray area, is that all yours, or is that the indoors fields? The indoor part, I thought was part of Boulder Valley Ice.
Sorry.
That's okay. There, that one.
So back to the bigger picture.
Okay.
This one.
Yeah. So, is all of that gray area your facilities, or is that Boulder
Impact
Valley?
Sports Performance is taking this section right here. This is the gym, this is functional fitness, and these are rehab. We are leasing this space full-time, and then we are going to program the whole space.
Okay.
This is being built and paid for by Boulder Valley Ice.
Right.
We're going to co-program it.
Okay, when I saw it was gray, I was trying to understand if you had made a change or if
Oh,
there.
no.
Okay, so, and then this building in the front here is where you're now going to move this away from disconnected?
This-
Which building are
Just
you
the
disconnecting from Boulder Valley Ice?
This building, the MOB,
Okay.
because of some fire lane, they have to move over here about a good, 12 feet width away. That's the only part that's disconnecting.
Okay.
Boulder Valley Ice is right now currently building this facility along with, we're building this part, of course, and then this was going to be left empty with nothing there. And that's when we went to Boulder Valley Ice and said, well, maybe we can do something with this space for the town and build out that the old safe spot space.
Okay. And my last question is, when you had it as an option, something about equity, equity in what? Equity position of what? Not the building, obviously.
Of the building, of the whole project, of the revenues, of the building, of the project. That's something that we want to explore more. Because right now, we as Impact Sports Management will be putting up the money, signing on the debt, building the facility, and then we basically own this building, own everything that goes on in it. But we want this to transition over to the town over a period of time, because
The ownership of the building?
yes, the whole thing. It's sitting on the ground lease. We're not going to be. Well, we're going to sign some sort of ground lease with BVI, because that's all their. That's all their. That's their land given to them by you.
Right.
But the equity will be in the building as well as in all the membership and all the revenue that comes through there. So that this project transitions from us starting it to become the town superiors, and then in the future, they take that investment and do whatever they want to do to it, add on to it, expand it across the street or whatnot.
Can I follow up, Rita?
Go right ahead.
So the equity is not in the full Impact Sports Management building. It's only in the 2-story, 7,000 per So the 14,000 total square rectangular addition.
Correct.
Okay. And at 5 years, when you say 30% equity position accrues, is there any additional exchange of funds, or is it for the funds already invested?
Funds are already invested.
Okay, and the same at whenever 70% is 10 years?
Sure.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams?
What percentage of your building is already leased at this point?
Our current facility runs out of a 20,000 square foot building. This is a 21,000 square foot building with 2 floors. I think the footprint about 16, and the upstairs is about another 6. And so right now, Impact is running all its operations out of a similar sized facility, except now we're going to have more access because of the fields. And so currently, this space is all full of Impact clients. Now we'll probably lease out some of the small offices to the physical therapy and whatnot, but right now everything is all used. Now, if we had decided that the town wants more space than this, and they want to take the second floor because of the programming needs, we figure need more than 14,000 square feet. Well, we could either build another layer here, or we could take the second floor here and move the batting cages somewhere else.
So you're 100% leased then? Oh, okay.
Well, we're leased to ourselves, basically, is our building.
And
But
what
not
is
the medical office building, though, that's a different.
Non-medical office.
That's 38%.
This is
I see.
60,000 square feet separate from this whole project.
And that has nothing to do with you?
No, that is him.
Well, yes.
That
Yeah,
does.
That's him.
yeah.
That is him.
This is a building project that I started, but I passed on to a developer, another developer who's trying to get this fully leased. But our practice will be moving into the second floor of this building.
And you have leased 38% so far of that.
I think so.
But financially, they're two independent
These are
companies.
completely different projects.
That's what
and
I'm trying to
companies.
understand here.
Yes. Yeah, this is an old drawing that we had. I don't have the new one. In fact, I don't think this has ever been separated out on any other
No, it hasn't.
future diagrams.
Trustee Hansen?
If you move forward and do this, would you still continue to run the operation in Broomfield?
No, we would close that cover facility that Rugby's been in, and we may have a smaller facility over at the Westminster Highland Hills Ice Ranch for a small ice facility, maybe a smaller facility for those hockey players, but we would close that facility and move all operations.
So everything would come here then?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more, if you could, about how the shared space would be allocated, scheduled. Because we understand that the dedicated town space would be available for town residents all the time, but there's been talk of additional usage of the basketball courts, volleyball, and so on. And concern I've heard and had as well is, will that truly be available, and how will that be allocated, and will it be at times that could actually be meaningfully used by residents?
Yeah. The programming of this space and this entire soccer field, this space can be mostly done by us. The soccer field will be done by us and BVI jointly. And in terms of, let's talk about the soccer field real quick. Luke right now has contracts with Broomfield Soccer. I think he's working on lacrosse as well, and other groups to take this field certain times of the day. We would have to work around those because those are signed contracts with payments and all that already there, that we would look at those times. There's a lot of times here, and in terms of when we want to do leagues for the town specifically, or leagues for the center. And those times that I've seen on the open schedule are quite open right now. And it's going to be kind of a first come, first served type of thing. So we want to go in there, create the program, say we want to take the space from Saturdays or every Monday through Monday through Fridays from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. But we have to get in there and see what's available and program that. This, we have a lot of folks coming to us. volleyball leagues, basketball leagues wanting time, because indoor basketball space is at a premium. And right now, a lot of our stuff that we do is youth. So during the school years, youth don't get out till 3 p.m. And so so right now, if you go to a current impact facility, from about 3 in the afternoon till 10 p.m., it's just a zoo. It's just a mess of kids. So we know for that fact, right now, this will be open from 5 in the morning or whatnot till 3 p.m. Can we do things in there? Can we do morning leagues, afternoon leagues, open gym time throughout there? And then we have to see and then it's seasonal too. Volleyball goes from November to May. Basketball is a certain part of the season. And volleyball and basketball are the main users of this gym. And then we would kind of fill in where we could. So I can't give you a percentage, but right now, at least during the school year, the gym is basically empty till 3 in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gregores?
So you said you're going to close the Broomfield, right, where you are, and you said Impact Sports basically is at 100% capacity if you moved everybody up here, all your clients came. What about future growth? I mean, if you're already at 100% capacity, where will I'm assuming your business will continue to grow if this becomes a wellness hub and a health hub. You have BVI next to you, you have the courts. This is a regional draw, basically. There's no room to expand.
Yeah, we would love to build this 3 to 5 times bigger and then grow into, but unfortunately, financial constraints don't allow us. In terms of space, what we're doing, right now, our current field is about this big at Impact. Actually, it's more longitudinal and long. And then we only have one volleyball court, and we don't have a full-size basketball court. So we're doubling our gymnasium space.
Okay.
We're adding another space on the second floor, plus we have access to the entire turf. So even though we are full right now, our current facility, we project that given all the extra spaces that we can work out of here, we could probably increase our business by over 75%.
Okay. Wow. That answered it. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Pennington, then I'd like to do public comment.
Okay. And I'm not sure if this is you or our staff or a combination of both. So I don't consider this a low-risk opportunity for the town because at $350,000 a year, the opportunity costs of this are pretty steep for me, meaning we've got lots of draw on what else we could do with that $350,000 a year if we didn't do this. So it's very important to me what I can reasonably expect to come back in membership fees to help offset that $350,000, and also what the additional cost to our residents would be of additional programming. So we've been presented some numbers here of membership fees, assuming 10% of Superior households participate. So that's roughly 460 households participate on a steady basis, right? And I think that number's way too high. I think it's a riskily high number based on numbers I've dealt with, and I'm a little disappointed that this has nothing to do with you, I don't think, but I feel I have to make it. I would have liked different scenarios of household membership, 5%, and even 2%, frankly, because we have lots of options for these same services in this community, and people are actively using them. So, about 3/4 of our population currently pays for similar services nearby. So, these are some realities we have. So, the numbers that we have in front of us also are monthly at $10 an individual, $30 for a family, and I'm unclear of the scenarios you painted, what would be included in that base rate and what would not be included in that base rate. For example, when on one of the memos attached to this packet, it says examples of programs available as a discretionary component at competitive price include yoga, Pilates, dance, Zumba, sports-specific boot camps, and one presumes youth and adult basketball leagues, volleyball leagues, etc. In the competitive programming available at Louisville Rec and at Lakeshore, a bunch of these are included in the base rate. So I'd like staff or you guys, somebody who is nimble with the data, the numerical analysis we've been given. If I pay $10 a month, what does that include? And what would I be expected to pay additional for? Would I be expected to pay additional for yoga, Zumba, Pilates, et cetera?
I think that is a question that the staff and us would get together and look at the price points, see what folks want, see what competitors have. But to get to your the first part of your question, I mean, the fact that 70 to 75% of your community has already memberships elsewhere does not surprise me at all. It's always been a healthy community, and it's always been people who are very active in sports along with their children. In fact, Impact has a ton of kids from Superior, not to mention Monarch, Little League and Superior Mustangs have also trained with us. And so, but we expect those 75% to come here, to come to their own community center, if it's got everything that they want there, and in terms of the fitness. Certainly, if all they wanted to do was teach your kids how to swim, then we're not going to have that opportunity. But I think, but this particular facility will meet a certain subsection of need. I think the community has. It won't meet all of it, but it'll meet a good subsection.
But can you address the price point?
Yes, and the price point, my initial, we talked about this early on, is that first of all, $10 a month is not going to get you in 24-hour fitness at all. And so your $10 a month, or anybody's $10 a month, I don't even know if it's been $10, maybe it's $15 a month. We'll have to figure all that out. It gets you access into this facility. This is basically kind of the adult facility. We really didn't want the adults mixing with the kids because these kids are loud, obnoxious, and they're throwing things around, and adults never really want to work out next to the kids. So we kind of envision this as a group fitness for adults, and so they'll have full access to this facility to do the to go ride their bike. They just want to come home, ride the bike for half an hour, to go lift weights, to use all the machines. Anything that requires a instructor or is an organized class, I believe will have to have some sort of tiered pricing for them, depending on the value that we see that it brings. Because there are some programs we may be able to just give scot-free. In fact, a lot of the Silver Sneakers and senior programs likely can be done that way. But if somebody we're going to have to hire a yoga instructor to come do yoga, they have to get there will be a programming fee for that. So those programming fees is something that staff and us will sit down and see what all the programs are, how much we charge for them, what can we include in that price of whatever the membership.
So whatever the base fee is, $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever, is adult access to the weight and fitness on the main level, and the rest is additional.
A lot of the leagues that are run are also probably going to be included in that cost. And I think there may be, some of the leagues do have a kind of not an entry fee, but sort of I don't know what they call it, but there are some leagues that have fees associated as well. I don't think all the like the volleyball leagues are all included in there, in the membership levels,
Yeah.
the membership fees.
What I'm used to is there's a team fee. So, and then one last question. On the upper tier, this is all very valuable space to me, and how we would use it productively is very important to me. And I was a little surprised to see the lower left quadrant on the second floor dedicated to babysitting, to childcare. I thought I heard you say that elsewhere in your facility you provide childcare in your Impact Sports Management part.
No, we don't have any childcare next door.
Yeah.
We had heard from surveying from town that childcare was important. And how important is it worth taking up? This is not to scale, of course, unless you have really a lot of kids. But we're not in the childcare business.
Right.
And so we would probably sub this out. If it's important enough to the town and residents that, I don't know if we need to send another survey, but if 50% of the mommies say, I can't work out, nobody's watching my kids, then we may want to invest in a child care portion of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Trustee Gregoris, and then I'd like to do public comment.
Sure. How old do you have to be to qualify for the silver sneakers?
You and me.
Medicare.
Oh, no.
Medicare.
Not yet? No, okay.
No, and only if you have the right supplemental insurance.
Okay. The more serious question, of course, is I think that 10% of households is actually very conservative. If I were to bet, you would have a lot more than 10% of the households coming to your place. Because if I was paying on a monthly basis at Louisville or in Broomfield, it's a great facility out there, I would choose to be in my own hometown. It's closer. I can ride my bike. I could walk even if I want to from where I live. And I would want to invest here. Why would I want to take my money to some other town? Now, if I want to go swimming, that's different. The pool situation, we
They
have to
both
figure
have
that out.
pools.
Right, they both have pools, so that's the one thing. But everything else, I would come to you. Why would I go somewhere else? I live here, I shop here, this is where I would want to take myself, my family.
Okay.
So it's, the 10% to me is way low, honestly.
Let's do public comment, and then that will certainly bring up more questions, and we'll have more discussion, but I would like to get to public comment before we get too much further. Public comment.
Hi, Brian Hill, 2110 Kyoto Lane. I was looking at the packet that staff prepared for this discussion, and and just looking at some of the numbers, you know, the 10%, that is really a small number of people to be subsidizing with the amount of money we're talking about in this proposal. You're spending almost $1.8 million over the 5 years, and you're only going to recover $535,000. That's based on the $107,000 of membership fees anticipated. And that's only a 30% recovery rate. You know, all the other rec centers are up in the 60% range. So if you're trying to compare apples to apples in this process, you really need to look at those recovery rates, because that's really not fair to residents who don't use the facility. And if it can only accommodate 1,200 people, you know, I don't know if that's the same 1,200 people all year long, or it's a constant refresh. You know, I think you have to examine that. Also, that $350,000 a year, I don't think that's a very real number. I think if you're going to have a sign on this that says Town of Superior Health and Wellness Center, you own that baby, warts and all. And I think just the cost of managing and administering a rec center, you're going to want to know about service levels, you're going to have to handle complaints, you're going to have to consider security, you're going to have to consider liability insurance for the town, because it's really something you guys are going to own. You may end up spending another $150,000 a year just managing that. And if you add in that additional cost, 5 years at $150,000, you're down to like a 21% recovery rate, because the cost just went up to $2.5 million. I mean, I don't know if this is important to you, but I think you need to look at a recovery rate to compare this rec center opportunity with other alternatives. So let's say that you wanted to go for a 60% recovery rate. Okay, that's 3 times what you're charging in membership rates. You really need to understand what the profit aspect of this is. If you're going to make an investment, you really want to know how much money you're going to get back on this in terms of profits. And I don't think that's been clearly stated. I think early in this process, Impact Sports said, well, we anticipate $120,000 to $240,000. But it didn't say, is that annually? Is it over the 5 years? It didn't talk about what dollar volume in those discretionary programs you'd have to generate. So again, it all has to be worked out. Let's see. And then I had a question too. I know in January that the board was provided with a investment policy red line. And on that policy, if you look at it, it's some very low risk, very liquid standard investments. And I was just wondering how that investment policy might play into this decision process for this investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Okay. All right. What I'd like to do is, Trustee Sorelli had another question, but then following that, I'd like to kind of go through each board member and kind of take a pulse on where we are with this. This is our fourth meeting on this, and to me, we're kind of getting to a critical point where they've spent a considerable amount of time on this. We've spent a considerable amount of time, staff has too, and we need to decide, are we going to continue spending time on this, or do we not have the support to do that? So we need to
I think
figure
I
that
may
out.
have figured out the answer to my question, so.
Okay. All right, then let's dive into, I guess, summarizing if there's no other questions, discussions.
I'm in support to move forward. I think I've been pretty clear about it. I think the turning point for me really is the investment, that there's ownership. You know, I don't know if those numbers are going to stay the same, 30% over 5 years, 70% over 10 years, but that makes a difference to me financially. I trust Paul. I know he came before us last time and kind of laid out the plan of how we would finance the rest of it and where it would come from. So I'm comfortable.
Okay. Thanks. Who's next? Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
I'm not in support of this. I think these are very limited services for a so-called, not even a rec center. And I really think this is premature in the fact that the town center, we're not there yet. You know, we have Boulder Valley Ice, we know that, and it's going to take a while for Boulder Valley Ice to build again here. And we don't know where we're going with the town center quite yet. I mean, we have a great plan, but I don't know the timing on that. And we just sat here and heard from Randy a little bit ago that it's feasible that in 2 years the space, the second floor and third floor may be available by then, or we might have something that in that short of period of time. And so I'd rather wait, and I think that we will have more time to figure out what kind of services we actually need. And I just can't see changing my subscription, you know, to Louisville and jumping ship over here to just weights and cardio, because I have a lot more over there, and there's no way I'm gonna, my whole family goes over to Louisville, and I can't see doing it.
Okay, thanks. Like to go next? Trustee Sorelli?
My struggle here is, number one, these aren't things I do, similar to Trustee Williams, so I'm trying to separate myself from that. So, in a way, I'm kind of laying back to see what the majority of the board wants to do and not fight it. But I do have, what I do is I run and I pay $50 a month for 3 times a week to go to a boot camp. It would be neat if that boot camp met in this facility instead of Horizons, but I'm not sure, 9 months out of the year we're meeting on outdoors on Williams Field. So I don't think a lot of people in town are paying $50 a month to work out 3 times a week. That's So I'm not sure of our cost recovery. I think the $350,000 a year is pretty expensive. And I'm struggling with how we are going to, the funding scenarios we've been presented with, which I know are only possible scenarios, but one of using a portion of a mill levy credit that the town is authorized to use. Well, that's a tax increase anyway. I mean, that's, mills, every year the county makes my mill more expensive. So I'm struggling with this. I'm undecided, but I'm leaning towards, this isn't really what I want. And I'm not sure I see the clamoring for the town to have something immediately. I have a saying that I kind of live by, and if we hurry, do you want this badly? Well, you might get it badly if you're hurrying to get it. So I'm not putting a kibosh on it, but I'm kind of laying back, and I'll go with the group. I'm not going to be one that says no. Maybe I will be if it's 3-3. I don't, but I'm not overwhelmed by it.
Okay.
And that's I can't get beyond that.
Okay. Trustee Hanson and Mizell.
So we're not being asked right now to
Right.
approve a plan that sets anything in stone. All we're doing is determining if there is some possibility here to move forward with something. I'm also not keen on the $350,000 a year, but I think that those things can be further discussed. What I am really keen on is that they've come back and addressed some of our questions.
Mhm.
We felt originally, a few meetings ago, that this was very limited and it was just weights. But they obviously have the ability to do a lot more than just weights and accommodate our needs and what our residents have asked for. So I am absolutely interested in continuing the conversation and seeing if there's something that we can come up with that we're all happy with. I don't want to see it die right now. I want to see it move forward and see if we can do something that everybody likes.
Trustee Dozell.
If it's such a good idea, then I think it's a good business idea. And I've always thought that that's what Impact Sports and Cornerstone was going to do, was going to present all of these things that you talked about here. So I'm still at a loss as to why we are now being asked as a town to subsidize a small subset of our residents to participate in your business structure. And so I have real conflict with that we would pay as a town for a smaller subset of people to use it. And we even have a disagreement, or maybe not a disagreement, not really sure which side, what percentage would actually utilize the services that you provide. I think there's a great opportunity that people will come from all around, not just Superior, but all around, to use your facility. But that was your business plan that you presented, why you wanted to come here. So for us then to come back and help you subsidize the start of that business, that's the way I feel, is what we're doing. The majority of us would be, myself included, I feel, I would come over and use it if it was something that we decided to do. But I wouldn't be happy because I'd feel like I'm supporting a lot of people that aren't using it in order for a few people to use it. And I look at other facilities like this, wellness centers, and I see that Estes Park and the Stanley Hotel just entered into an agreement to build a health and wellness, and they're partnering potentially with Anschutz Medical Center, and they're partnering with another clinic within Estes Park, and that's all private money. It has nothing to do with the town of Estes Park, from my understanding. And the concept is a good concept for a business to undertake. But I just can't see how we could, there's an overwhelming clamor right now for weights and fitness, and then we'd have to pay for programs that we would create. I heard a lot of Patrick and I would create programming. Well, I don't want Patrick to create the programming. I want you all. That's your business. But then I also heard that it wasn't your business. You're not really doing that. You're doing it for youth, but you're not doing it for the residents, the type of people that would come from Superior. So I love your business. I love the fact that you're coming here, but I can't support providing the subsidy to a smaller subset of residents that might use a limited amount of services, because it doesn't fit the rec center. You even said that in your presentation. It doesn't fit the rec center. So I really like that you're coming, and I like what you're doing, and I like the services that you could provide, but not as a wellness center sponsored and subsidized by the town of Superior. I would say no at this time.
Okay. Trustee Pennington.
I want to repeat what Rita just said. We are extremely excited to have you here, and I think it's going to be a great product to have in Superior of Impact Sports Management. And I'm glad you have the opportunity for additional space in response to Elia's question, because I think you're going to need it. I think you will be very successful here. However, when we had dinner with ProStack, our Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Committee, and they have been really the front people on this whole concept of indoor space, recreation space. There are front people on trails within the community, on parks, other recreational amenities. And when we went around the horn with them at this meeting last week and said, what are your views on this? One of the comments they made was extremely powerful with me, and it was, if you, the town board, came to us, ProStack, and said we had $350,000 extra, we found it, maybe natural gas is discovered under the town hall, and you said, what would you do with it? This person said, who's a longtime member of the committee, said, I would never say weight and fitness. I would say an indoor pool. I would say gym, indoor combination recreation facilities, et cetera, but weight and fitness would never come to mind because nobody has ever asked me for it in my tenure on the committee. That was very powerful to me. And when we look at the data we got back from our residents, weight and fitness is very valued. There is no doubt it's very valued. But my analysis of all of it says it's very valued in conjunction with the other things they value. And if you add the pool questions, if you add pool with lap lanes and just plain old recreational pool, indoor pool comes out number one. We asked it as two questions, so that sometimes gets lost. This wouldn't have that. Track is very important, is very high up there among those people who value fitness and weights. This wouldn't have a track. Gym use, and this is not gym use before 3 p.m. This is an adult facility, and most adults work until in the evening, so they would require that gym use at night. And this most likely would not have that gym use late at night. So it comes down to me, again, the $350,000 and the opportunity cost to this community in engaging in what would be a subsidy. And even if you accept 470 households as reasonable, that subsidy, if you accept the $107,000 defrayal of cost from fees, is still is $520 per household. For $520, my household can belong to Louisville Rec and get everything combined over there. And I contend those numbers are off, and the per household subsidy may well go way higher than $520. So I would like to encourage you to investigate this, just as we've collaborated here. I would like you to investigate as an entity whether or not you can make something like this, funded privately and by your investors, successful, with the potential of coming back to us and asking us what role we might want to play for, or whatever. But I cannot in any way, shape, or form support, one, $350,000 for even 5 years, and I do appreciate you coming down from the 10 years on that. But more so, what I found is our own process. We were all excited about the survey. We're all excited about moving forward in our own thought process and visioning of what our own community/rec center could be on the second and third floors of Town Hall, of Town Square. And that's all gotten stopped. We've now spent all these months, past several months, sort of fixated on this approach. I want us to return to our visioning. I would like to see us have as a ballot issue, commit to a November 2016 ballot issue, mill levies that would be associated with a very specific community/rec center. I think any mill levy, I will, for me, insist that any mill levy increase go to the voters. I'm not going to play around with 1 or 2 or 3 mills just because we have the potential to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I'd like you to investigate whether or not you can make this a for-profit entity with us as, people who buy into those services, but nowhere near the level and nowhere near the subsidy that we're talking about. And I'd like the town to get back on track with the consideration of our own community and rec center with some very specific deadlines, hopefully November 2016 going to the voters. So I would vote no for this.
Okay, thanks. I'll follow up with my opinions, which is what I stated the very first time I heard this, and that was that I'm extremely excited about this. I think we're at a point in time that we didn't even envision a year ago when we were having town center discussions. We did not even have the option of potentially having a town recreation amenity that could open on day one of the first building in town center. So it's a way to activate our current residents into town center, immediately create amenities that the survey indicated that people want. And to me, it's an incredible opportunity. I think if we pass it up, we're really short-sighted for passing something like that up. It's certainly got a lot more questions and take a lot more detail, but the more detail that you bring forth, the more I like it, and the more that I think our residents will like it when they fully see what all it has to offer. As far as the pool, I've heard the pool come up a number of times. I continue to believe that the answer on pool is to put a bubble on our north pool, a bubble or some type of structure on our north pool, and utilize an asset that sits there for the majority of the year unused. And yes, I'd love to have a rec center with everything under one roof, but the reality is that would take many years and mill levies, and I think this is something we can accomplish right in a very short time frame without having to go through ballot initiatives and campaigns and all of that. So I think let's be smart about it. Let's be nimble. Let's look at assets we've already got, like the pool. How can we make use of that pool year round? How can we make use of this opportunity that we've got here? So by my count, we've got 3 pretty strong yeses, we've got 3 pretty strong no's, and we've got an undecided. So
Well, I really have to thank Trustee Pennington because what she said makes sense to me. And back at the time when we undertook the indoor survey, I think the real purpose of that was to actually determine if this town's ready to consider a ballot for a rec center. And I think we should be targeting that, and we're getting off that track. And so I'm leaning with the naysayers at this point. I'd like to see, I'm 100% on board with Trustee Pennington's comments.
Okay.
So where does that leave us then? It's a no-go?
Yeah, I think, what I heard from the majority is they're not interested in pursuing this any further, and then whether there's interest in something else at some point in the future, the board will have to have further discussion on it, so.
Is that what you said?
Hmm?
Is that what you said?
That's what I say. I wish you the very best of luck, and I hope you investigate the possibility of a for-profit addition to your building. I got lots of ideas I could share with you that have jogged in my mind, but I can't do it at $350,000 expense to the town a year, or some major part of that $350,000.
And based on what I hear, I think you're going to need that space for your own business. It's very, probably right out of the chute.
Well, as you could see, it was very, very evenly divided, very good discussion. I don't know that it's completely, completely dead, but I think it's important to have check-ins every step of the way, and, this, to me, was a very critical check-in, and I guess you'll be back in touch with us and let us know if Trustee Pennington's ideas, might have some merit to go a different direction, and something that would get us perhaps, over that 4-3 hump.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I think that we need to get back to business and work on the
Next steps.
the survey, and get back with Randy and really kind of go down that route that we've already been discussing.
Okay, anything further? Okay, meeting's adjourned.
I was trying to say,